Oh, we're off to a good start today. Hello. Hey, what's happening? Happy Friday, everybody. Seems like we're picking up right where we left off yesterday. Are we good? Are we on the air?
You know what?
Are things working right now? Can you hear me?
You know what?
Hello.
It would help if I put on the right mic.
That usually helps.
Here's the problem.
If you have the right microphone is usually a key part of radio.
You know what, though?
Yeah.
Normal people would blame you because when there's a host and a producer, normally you sit in the other chair.
That is true.
With the other mic on, which was the mic that I had on and up.
That is true. I don't move.
So
I don't budge, Will Ortner.
Now, here's the thing. Normal people would blame you for that. I won't. I will accept full responsibility for you not moving to the proper chair, because now I have to change the cameras.
I got to admit,
it's the whole thing.
I'm a little bummed right now because in the brief moment where I try and talk and nothing's going out over the air and I can't hear myself, I immediately think things are broken. You know what that means? You go home early weekend.
I'm not gonna lie.
Things are. I tried.
Didn't pop on.
I gave it 30 seconds. The mics weren't working. That's it for me. All right. See you guys. Have a great weekend.
The best part is
see you on Monday.
You didn't pop on. I stared and was like, "It's on."
I'm looking at the thing right now.
I'm looking at it.
I am looking
the
at
mic
it.
is on and up. It's the same mic that I always turn on and up. Why isn't there words coming out of his mouth?
Oh, what a great start to a Friday. Yeah, I don't move seats when Sprague's out because we have this thing called Wide Orbit, which is how we play drops. You know, we got a little screen over here, and we got, we can...
I had a full-body boner for 2 weeks.
That's the whole... you got to have that. You got to have that availability. And people have been wanting to give me a radio award because I gave Sprague a pretty solid...
and spit on that night.
The other day earlier this week because he mentioned he had a night at home with his wife, which is very rare for them with two little kiddos running around. And I'd say you guys probably had some fun. So I'm awaiting my radio award in the mail. It will be here eventually. But the reason I don't move chairs when Sprague is out is because I never took the time with our engineers to set up Wide Orbit for me on that computer. And so if I sit in the other chair, I don't have the ability to play drops, which you can't do radio with.
You can't have that. Now, that being said, if I was better as a producer, I would have had the right microphone. Like I would have.
I looked over and I'm like, why is that light red? The other microphone's red. Mine is definitely red too because I turned it on, but nothing's working.
Well, but see, you have to do this thing where you pot them up.
You got to slide it up. You got to pot it up.
Yeah,
it's okay. We're off to a good start. It's a Friday. I'm feeling good.
We're mailing it in. At least I am.
Absolutely mailing it in today. It sounds like I missed quite an eventful Thursday on our radio program. How did we
got there? We figured it out.
Everybody survived. Yeah, I had no clue. I played in the Cleveland Alumni Golf Tournament yesterday, which was a great time. I usually don't play in it because they have a shotgun start at like 9 o'clock, and they've been begging me to do it for years. And I thought, whatever, I'll take a day this year and I'll go play. I'm going to show up and take the day off. So I had a grand time, but I left the show on Wednesday under the insinuation that Patrick Harris was going to fill in and host. And that evidently did not happen. He was sick, and he let you know at 10 o'clock on Wednesday night that he can't make it in. And somehow Jordan Schultz was able to receive the bat signal and make it in on time for yesterday's show. That's kind of miraculous that we actually found people. Because I believe when I told Schultz I was going to be out on Thursday, he kind of gave me the impression I'm not available all week. And then bat signal late Wednesday night, he was available all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, I think he might have said I think he was supposed to be at the coast. Him and it's his wife's birthday.
Yes.
It sounds like they do like a birthday week.
They do like a whole celebration thing.
So I think he was kind of supposed to be gone, but maybe he was able to like work around it because it's like early enough to where she won't even notice that he's gone. You ever have that?
That
like,
is true.
When you work this show.
Yeah, you're home at 9:30. It's like, hey, let's start the day.
You might not notice it.
Yeah.
People might have no idea. Like I'm taking care of a dog right now.
Yeah.
According to his schedule.
Oh, he has no clue.
I don't even have to get him up till 9.
No.
Like, we're good.
He's just napping. You feed him when you get home. Maybe feed him at night before. You're good to go.
I keep him up an extra hour. He goes to bed an hour later. I get there an hour later. He's up. Fine. No one notices. So maybe Schultz was doing the same thing that I'm doing with the dog I'm house sitting.
That sounds
with
about
his
right.
Wife.
That sounds about right. Well, I'm glad we made it. It sounds like we had some technical difficulties yesterday. I'm glad we made it through the show. Everybody survived. I'm sorry that P. Harris. I was looking forward to Patrick Harris having the chance to fill in and host because we have condemned him for many things on this program because he threw a horrible first pitch at the Pickles game, which we made fun of, and it deserved to be made fun of. And he's also flipped his baseball fandom multiple times. He went Cleveland to Seattle, back to Cleveland.
He's back on the Guardians?
He's back on the Guardians.
I don't think you can,
and I got issues with that. Like, you don't divorce, remarry, and then divorce and then remarry your ex. Like,
I don't think you're allowed to divorce
no.
in a sports fandom unless a team comes to your city.
Exactly. I think you can maybe take some time apart. Like, we need to separate for a couple of months. I will allow that. But a full-on divorce and then new marry of a new fandom, you're moving too quick, buddy. That's not a good solution. And we made fun of him for that, and I was looking forward to him coming on the show and explaining himself to our wonderful listening audience, but that unfortunately did not happen. I did have a great time yesterday, and I have come to the conclusion, and you're a decent golfer, Will. Like, you play occasionally throughout the summer, right?
I'm a mid-90s, high 90s guy. Yeah.
Okay, you're mid-90s. So you enjoy it. It's a day with the boys. You're outside having a couple of pops. It's a nice, fun Saturday. I've talked about this a lot on my golf podcast, but I feel like the most underutilized form of golf is the scramble with your buddies.
Yes.
Like, so many people, and myself is included in this, where if you're a serious golfer, you're so infatuated on what your score is and how you're playing. Like, I will legitimately at times, not anymore since Teddy Ballgame was born, but prior to having a kid, my mood almost depended on how my golf game looked. Like, if I played a bad round or I couldn't hit a 7-iron all of a sudden, like Tuesday and Thursday, I'm going to be a little funky. I'm not going to be in the best of moods. And that's not a very healthy space to live in, Will. Okay, so there's your PSA for the morning. And this is where it's the one format where you get to have a great time. It brings in the team aspect of golf, which does not happen often. You don't play a lot of team. It's always you. It's your ball. You're competing against other people. And it eliminates a lot of the pressure. But when you hit a big shot, there's something about hitting a big shot and having 3 other people celebrate with you, as opposed to you hitting a big shot. You're celebrating because it looks great on your scorecard, and you get a hey, you get a little high five, a little fist bump, nice birdie, nice eagle. But there's something about the team camaraderie that I feel like we need to integrate the scramble into more regular golf rounds. Like, you go play a Saturday round with your boys, swing's not feeling great. Why would I shoot a 98 on my own today when we can team up and shoot a 67? What do you think?
I'll tell you what, as someone who just likes to get up there and it's like, I'll use driver on this.
I'm going to swing as hard as I can.
I love it because, look, if I get a hold of one, I can poke it out there. It's not the best drive swing of all time. Like, you've never seen someone hook the way that I can hook.
You got a good hooker?
It's very impressive.
Impressive hooker from Will
I'm
Ortner.
all the way on the left side of the tee box. Like, I'm straddling the tee box markers, the white markers, and then I'm still aimed like at a 45 to the right, and I'm swinging hard. So let's just be honest that there's a couple shots around that aren't going to go my way when it comes to the driver.
Exactly. You're pretty dependent on a right to left shot hole shape. You need a dog leg left. Dog leg rights, you're absolutely screwed.
And I'm in trouble. But here's the thing. I don't golf enough. I don't practice enough to go up there with, well, I'm going to use my 7-iron here and place it exactly where I want to. I just want to swing hard.
Come on.
So let's get the boys together. We'll drink responsibly, and then we'll hit the ball hard. That's all I really want to do. If you have 4 guys up there, one shot's going to be good.
Likely
and then everyone else can just go and swing hard. I'm down for that. I always have, like, in college, my brother and my old roommate, he's a really good golfer now. He's a pro up in Sancadia.
Hey, humble brag.
Right. Well, I know a golf pro.
You
Sick.
do. That's pretty badass, man.
I'm really cool. People are my friends. But we would always try and shoot under par. Like, we would play together once or twice a week where we didn't play our own scores. We played together as a team, and we would try to shoot under par. And it happened a couple of times because he's a really good golfer. My brother is a pretty decent golfer. I think he's a 5 handicap.
Yeah.
And then I'm just vibes.
Sure.
Like, I had
You're just having a good time.
I brought
and
the
you're
40s.
hitting a bomb or two here or there, right? You maybe launch a drive, you help the boys out, you get one down there in the fairway. Like, you're feeling good.
Right.
I'm contributing every once, not a lot, but every once in a while.
Make one ridiculous putt.
Hey, Tyrese Halliburton got a gold medal at the Olympics.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. Dude got a gold medal. He's going to have that for the rest of his life. You have an under par round of golf under your belt, Will Ortner.
That's right.
It's an impressive thing.
We don't have to bring in that other people made most of the shots. I made like
matter.
one putt and one drive.
It doesn't
That's
matter.
fine.
There is something truly enjoyable about having that freedom of knowing that this shot does not matter and that there's already a ball about 190 yards out in the middle of the fairway, and I'm going to swing as hard as I possibly can. And let's see how far this thing can go. It usually doesn't turn out well.
No.
You usually overswing and you overcook something, and it's not a great process, but the ones that you run into, oh, buddy, is it fun. And so we went 16 under yesterday. Gross, 16 under. And we did not win. The winning score was 19 under par.
Who was cheating?
You know, there are some allegations getting thrown out. Now, not cheating, but more so just an unfairly stacked team of single-digit handicaps, which is just
really?
Like 4 guys in a gross format. You know,
there are 4 guys who take.
I got my eyes on them. I got my eyes on them for next year. You know, we might need to make some changes. We'll see. But little frustrated. 16. You told me yesterday we're going to go 16 under. That's not net. I think we were 22 under because we got a couple of strokes.
Right.
Gross 16 under. I will take that in a format. Made 3 eagles. We were dialed yesterday. Yeah. Absolutely dialed, but came up 3 short. Came up just short, Will. Came up just short.
Sounds like you got sandbaggers over
feel like
there.
We got
Is that a Casey Dyer move?
I feel like it absolutely
was Casey Dyer a part of that crew?
He was not a part of that golf tournament, but it definitely could be.
I could see Casey Dyer sandbagging, being like, I'm a 20 handicap going out there shooting a 72. Yeah. Like, I didn't know. I apologize.
Well, we're here. I'm back today. It's a Friday. We are on the air. It was almost like one of those substitute teacher things where you're sitting in a classroom and it's like, how long am I going to give this? If they don't show up in 10 minutes, I'm done. I'm out of here. I was kind of hoping that was the case with the mics today, but we power through.
Don't worry, I found them.
We did. You're just in time, Will, right when I was thinking I could go home. Robert Allen's going to join us coming up. Kind of a funky interview. He's going to join us at 7:40. It's the only time that he could go. For those of you familiar with the radio clock, that is like right in between 2 different segments. And so we're going to get creative. We'll figure out a way to kind of wedge that in at the back half of the second hour of the show. So that will be at 7:40. Oklahoma State is up next in the preseason Dirty Poll. And then at 8:30, we're going to double dip again on the Dirty Poll. We will go to Arizona and talk a little Arizona Wildcat football. So we got Arizona, we got Oklahoma State today, so we're double dipping on the Dirty Poll. They are number 16 and 15 in our preseason poll. So we're getting closer and closer to kickoff. We got some preseason stuff to react to last night. Saw a little bit more of Drake May. Let's start, though, with, of course, it happened when I was out. I knew this was coming. I was hoping it was going to happen on Tuesday. It didn't. We got tweets. Of course, the vacation news strikes again. We start there. Thanks for being with us on a Friday. Dirt and Sprague off and running on 1080 The Fan.
Oregon.
as we wrap up the summer and we are all eagerly awaiting the start of actual football season and not preseason football. I'm at home last night, kind of going through some things, looking through some notes. Let's plan out the show. What are we going to get to today on a Friday? And I pull up the ESPN app on my phone. You know what the first video is that pops up? Like front page ESPN app. Boom. What's the first thing that shows up?
Little League World Series?
It is not the Little League World Series.
That's shocking. That's all ESPN showed you last
It was Tom Brady shooting hockey pucks into a washing machine.
Hell yeah.
And I just thought, this is where we're at. This is
that
okay.
Rocks.
This is kind of shows me where we're at in the calendar. Look at Tom Brady, man. He's got a great right-handed swing with a hockey stick. That's where we're at right now. And so things are a little dry. And on Tuesday, I knew that there was news coming on the Portland Trailblazers that I was eagerly awaiting to talk about because it's something I've been asking for and calling for a very long time. And I was told that the news was going to break on Tuesday, which I thought this is perfect timing. Sprague's going to be out tomorrow, as in Wednesday. I got a solo show. It's great timing. I'm going to have this big, juicy topic to get to on Wednesday. I'm going to be able to dive in. It'll be like an hour of the show. It's going to be delightful. Well, then Tuesday went through, and the news did not break, and so the embargo still existed. I get off the air on Wednesday's show, and what do I see Wednesday evening as I'm eating dinner? I see, oh, look at that. The Blazers announced they're leaving Root Sports, which led many people on Twitter to tweet us and say, of course, this happens right when you go on vacation because we were not here yesterday. So we get to do the delightful day after reaction when we're here, even though we weren't here yesterday, to really a great sign for Blazer fans. This is something that I have been calling for a long time. I know the majority of the fans are in agreement. The Root Sports deal has been an absolute disaster for this organization. It has not gone well. The fans have been incredibly frustrated with their inability to watch their team. And I know that I have been about as pessimistic and negative on this organization as anybody out there. But at least I will acknowledge, like, when you start stacking wins, I will pat you on the back for it. And I feel like they're starting to do it this summer. It started in the draft, taking Donovan Clingan 7th overall. Who knows how he's going to turn out as a regular NBA player, but at least on the surface, after watching him for a few games, you could say, all right, this guy's pretty good. We found a contributor, and at least that's something to be excited about as a fan because his summer league went really well. And then this news added on top of it is other than the news that Jody Allen is selling the team, which still unequivocally needs to happen and should happen, this is the only other news, at least in the short term, that I think would revitalize and wake up your fan base a little bit. You know, I have cautioned they are encroaching on a little bit of a dangerous territory here. You know, last year with their season ticket sales, a lot of those were sold before the Damian Lillard trade happened. And so many people at the time when they re-upped for last year's tickets did not realize, think, or even ponder the scenario in which Damian Lillard wasn't going to be around anymore. They ended up winning 21 games. He got traded. And their television ratings last year, partly because Root went to a higher sports package on Comcast, but their TV ratings dropped by 70% last year. That is a massive fall off. And the last thing that you want created in your market, and we're going to get to another team who might be going through this in the Northwest in the relatively near future, is an apathetic fan base. People who just who are not invested, who do not care, and who say, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. Whether you suck, you're good, you're fun, you're bad, it doesn't matter. You want people to at least have an opinion or an interest in watching you. And if the Blazers didn't do something this offseason, I genuinely feared where the fan base was going to go. You're always going to have your percentage of diehards. But I was genuinely fearful about how that looks in the next couple of years because there's no guarantee that there is a short-term solution to your tanking problems. And if you don't get Cooper Flagg or land one of these standout guys in the 2025 draft, if Donovan Clingan maybe doesn't pan out or Scoot struggles this year or Shaden doesn't have a pop year, like you're looking at 3 more years of a tank. And fans can only go through so many 20-win seasons before they just officially give up. And so this was the exact news that was needed. Now, we just still don't know exactly where they're going. I think we can all kind of draw conclusions and have heard things, and things have been speculated about possible alternatives, including a direct-to-consumer option. But I was very happy to see the organization make the move that put the interest of the fans first, which is how do we make our games more accessible? Because people likely will not be spending crazy amount of money on tickets this year, and you need to keep your city and your fan base engaged. And this is, at least until we find out the solution, we're not fully there, but this was at least the first step. And it was welcome sign of positive, happy news for the Blazers, and it feels like we have not had a lot of that over the last 5 years.
Right. I mean, we were talking about it, and I've been listening to a couple other hosts on the station talk about the move to Root or move away from Root. But I feel like for Blazers, you're going to have your diehards no matter what. They will eat through the tank. They're going to hate watch, or they'll do what you're doing right now, Dirt, where they find Donovan Clingan. Hey, we really like him. He's going to be a contributor. Oh, hey, Scoot had a really good run down the stretch. That's something positive to build off of. But where teams really make their money is on the casual fan. They make their money off my mom, my grandma.
How many games are they going to go to every year? How many will they watch randomly every year?
And they're not going if there's not, right now at least, they're not going if the Blazers aren't playing a big name star. If they're playing Milwaukee, you might get the casual fan to go because they want to go see Giannis. That's a bad example because Dame's there, but let's say Dame was hurt, or LA comes in, they're going to go see LeBron because that's what casual fans want. But when you put the team on Root, and then it becomes you have to buy the extra package to find them, and then half the time you're bumped off because the Kraken are on. So the Kraken are on the main, and then you got to go find Route 2 Electric Boogaloo, and that's really hard to find because it's in the 900s. It's not even in the 700s. Let alone the fact that they don't have a very good app. You can't go on Root Sports app.
It's horrendous.
Like on other like Bally Sports, they have decent apps and stuff like that you can go on and you can find your team. So they made it very difficult for the casual fan to go and find them, so the casual fan didn't. And now you have made it, or you have the opportunity to make it easier for the casual fan, and that's what you're going to have to do. Because I remember when I was a kid, I didn't care about the Blazers. The Blazers were way down on my list of teams that I cared about until they drafted Brandon Roy. And I cared about Brandon Roy, kind of, because he was at UW. And I remember watching him in the Pac-10 tournament and watching him in the NCAA tournament, being like, oh, I really like that player. I'm going to start trying to watch more games. And then because we had the package that got all the Blazer games, I started watching more and more as a kid. And all of a sudden now I'm invested and I'm a fan. That's what the Blazers have to do with this new TV deal. You have to get it in a spot where a dopey, 4th, 5th grade kid can easily find this game, or someone who just moved to the city can easily find this game, or someone who's, hey, I'm bored. It's a Wednesday night. There's a basketball game on and it's a local team. I'll throw it on. Because you're going to tank and it's not going to be a great year this year. And you don't want it to be a great year.
No, you should win 15 games.
But if you can get casual fans to watch this team and go, wow, we lost that game, but Scoot Henderson had a double-double, and he was making crazy passes, and Donovan Clingan came in, and he was swatting balls off the Moda Center roof, and Shaden Sharp, when he jumped up to dunk, he hit his head on the backboard, and that's why he missed the game-winning dunk. Like, you need these things to get these casual fans in, and it finally feels like the Blazers, I don't know if I want to say that they woke up, but there's finally an opportunity now to get back on to a channel or onto an app where it's easy for fans to just go, oh, I can just click here, boom, game on.
Well, and that's where you can solve two different solutions, right? So you can have a hopefully direct-to-consumer channel that's easy for maybe some of your older fans to watch who won't quite, like, I try, whenever these kind of things come up about streaming, I always think of my parents. And if my parents had to figure out, there's a Trailblazer app on your smart TV, can you figure that out? And I think the answer for them would be no, they probably can. So if you put games on a local channel, whether it's, a chunk of the season, a quarter of the season, a third of the season, or all of the season, at least there's that of like, hey, they know where that channel is. We can go watch that channel. That's a very easy solution for us. But I think the other part of it that would be great is, and you kind of touched on this, Will, you really want to make sure you grab your young fans at an early age, because that's when you cultivate lifelong fandom. That's when you create, to be honest, like consumers and customers for the rest of your life, of people who want to watch your games and go to your games and buy your gear and be a part of the organization. And that's where the streaming aspect would be a home run, because so many people now, my brother's this way. They cut the cord and they don't have YouTube TV. They don't have any cable. He tries to steal my stuff all the time and text me for passwords. And I tell him no, but they don't have a lot of time for TV. He's got 3 little kids. Whatever they want to watch, they usually watch on Netflix. They don't watch a lot of live sports. But if you gave them a Blazer app, all of his kids are into basketball, but they've never been able to watch Blazer games because he didn't have cable before. So they'd go to a game maybe every year, but that was about it. You're not really cultivating young Blazer fans in a family like that. But if you give them a Blazer Vision app that you can go download, and even if it's like $29.99 for the year or whatever you want to charge for people to watch games, I think they're willing to do that, and then you have the option and the availability on a smart TV to watch games. So you can really kind of thread two different needles here, which I think would be really solid for the fan base. And this is finally, I think we're just hoping for news and updates from this organization that puts the fan first. And there has not been a lot of that over the last handful of years. And this is one where it finally feels like they're doing it. I think a lot of their decision to finally do it came from the fact that so many other organizations around professional sports are going this route, and your hands kind of forced, and including a team in the Northwest who bolted from their TV deal with Root Sports earlier this summer. When the Kraken had that announcement that they were leaving Root,
huge.
Like that was, everybody turned their eyeballs towards the Blazers and said, wait a minute. That team's in Seattle. They don't want to be on that channel because it sucks, and most people don't get it now that it's on a higher tiered package. And they're livid, and they want to find ways to reach more fans in Seattle because hockey's a little bit more of a niche sport. It's a young organization. They're trying to generate those fans that will be around for life. And when they made that move, I think a lot of people turned their eyeballs and gazed towards the Blazers and said, you better follow suit. So I think they had a lot of market pressure in order to do this. But it doesn't really matter what forced them to do it. What mattered was that they actually did it. And I cut the cord earlier this year. It is one of the best decisions that I have ever made. Getting out of Comcast and going to YouTube TV. I am a massive fan of YouTube TV. But I was faced with the reality of I'm not going to be able to watch Blazer games this year if they don't make this this change. And so the fact that they did, I'm genuinely excited. Now we all await the news of where do they go? What channel is it? What app do we get? How much is it going to cost? What are your options? But it sounds like that is on the near horizon. Just a good, happy note for Blazer fans of, hey, we finally got some positive news, man. We can watch Blazer games again. How exciting is that? So that came out. Of course, it happened the day that we were all off. Will was here yesterday, but we were all off, and so it's great to be able to react to it today. And very excited about the Blazers no longer being on Root Sports. A long overdue move. Coming up next, let's stick in broadcasting because there was one other note that came out yesterday that I thought was really smart about finding a way to reach this fan base. So we'll get to that coming up next. I got some NFL notes coming up towards the top of the hour, maybe 6:45-ish. College football notes as well coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. We are back after this, but first, here's Will with SportsCenter. Blazer tidbits. Did you guys break down game by game, the Blazer schedule?
Yeah, I've determined that they're gonna lose,
Lose.
win, lose.
Lose.
Well, I mean, when you start off New Orleans right away, I mean, those are just two big fat L's.
And Golden State, I believe, in the home opener. I think they play Golden State the first night of the year, something like that.
Will Steph Curry have a Olympics hangover that you can use for victory? That might be a win. We might start the year 1-0.
See what you did there. Don't let us get hot, Will. Don't let us get hot this year.
Don't let us.
Yeah, their schedule was announced yesterday, and the breakdown, just two tidbits that I thought were important. One is not a shocker, but the breakdown of nationally televised games for the upcoming year in the NBA. In a very surprising twist, the two teams who have the most are the Lakers and the Warriors. Never saw that coming. And the teams tied for the fewest are your Portland Trailblazers with 4. The Toronto Raptors and the Detroit Pistons also only have 4. I believe 3 of those 4 are NBA TV games, if I'm not mistaken. I think their only TNT game of the year is the Dame Return Part 2 in late January. That is the only game you get on TNT this year.
When you said 4, I immediately went, wow, that's pretty high.
That's not bad, right?
I was like, I expected 0. I was waiting for the, it's been 20 years since ESPN Sunday Night Baseball has come to Seattle.
Yeah, but the Mariners went through this last weekend. On top of that, though, because we jokingly said you should lose a lot of games this year. Not jokingly, that's valid. You should lose a lot of games this year. The schedule will back you up on that factor. According to some random dude on Twitter who I've never heard of, but he has 21,000 followers, and he does analytics and strategy for basketball. So I'm going to go ahead and trust him on this, breaking down the travel factors, rest days, rest advantage, disadvantage, opponent, altitude, etc. They break down the hardest schedules in the NBA. The Blazers, of course, have to travel further than anybody. That's not new, but all the other metrics tied into that, they have the hardest schedule in the NBA this year, according to this metric. So
good.
If you're looking for another thing to be optimistic about, there's another one where you have a very challenging schedule, and you should lose a lot of games this year. So there are some Blazers scheduling tidbits that I saw last night as that was fully released. We will not go game by game, win-loss throughout the entire 82
I think that'd
game.
be electric.
It would be great radio. We might win. We might get moved to New York if we do that, but we're not quite there yet this morning. One other bit of local news that I want to get to, and then we'll start diving into some football stuff. This came out yesterday, and I just look like it's whenever you get good news like this and you give fans what they want, I'm always happy to report it and talk about it. I'm not the biggest college baseball guy in the world. I don't know about you, Will. It's just, I watch a lot of Major League Baseball. I'm not the biggest. No, I'm not disrespectful to people who enjoy it and who are fans. I jokingly follow college baseball for about 3 weeks of the year when Oregon's in a conference tournament, regional / super regional. That's when you get my eyeballs.
Most people.
Outside of that, I'm not going to watch a ton. But I do know there's a fan base in the state that is incredibly passionate about their baseball program, and they follow it closely, and that is Oregon State. And they're going through this whole weird Pac-2 thing and where are your games going to be, and we went through the football schedule and how those games will be broadcast on television. They announced as a baseball program yesterday, I thought this was really cool, that Oregon State has partnered with Portland CW and Coin.com to broadcast 18 of their games.
So smart.
About what do baseball teams play? About 35-ish games? 30-something games? Is it more than that?
It's more.
More than that? Am I an idiot? Maybe I'm thinking college basketball. That sounds college basketball, right?
I think college basketball is around there. Let me pull up their
What do we have, like
schedule.
50 for college baseball? So,
well, they do a lot of 4-game series.
Well, and then some of them count for conference games, some of them don't. I know Oregon State will be independent this year, so that won't impact you. So maybe I am an idiot. It's probably more than 30. But 18 at least is
45 and 16 last year.
45 and okay.
So
looking at 60-ish games. 60-ish games. So they're going to broadcast 18 home games, and you will be able to watch these on the CW and live on Coin.com. And now you happen to be listening to a show right now with two legendary CW sports broadcasters. And I'm an award-winning Winterhawks color analyst. You are an award-winning high school football analyst for CW.
Right. Yeah.
And so I am a little bit biased when I say this, but I do genuinely appreciate the local push from that network and their partners at Coin to try and get more involved in the sports game. They obviously broadcast an hour of Isaac Katsuk every day, which is really cool for the radio station. They're getting more and more into local teams, Winterhawk games being on there for, almost 10 years now. It feels like it's been a long run of doing those. It's been great to give fans access to local teams. They do a lot with, I think, Portland Pilots baseball and different things. So this is just kind of another feather in their cap, if you will. But having I think if you're an Oregon State baseball fan, you've probably been wondering where is this all going to air. A lot of those games were on the Pac-12 network in the past. That channel obviously is shut down since the conference closed up shop. So you've been looking for that option, and it's a great solution. And I'm glad that a local network has stepped up to team up with the local team for a passionate fan base to give them the option to watch at least 18 of their games this year. It's really cool.
Right. Well, and they have a great crew over there that makes it pretty seamless. Like, you're going to get a professional broadcast from a local station. Like, we've all watched the local station, me specifically coming from Ellensburg, where it's like, oh my goodness, is this run by a bunch of high schoolers?
Right.
That's not what's going to come out of the CW crew. And again, this is a great move on OSU's part. What was the problem with the Pac-12 network? We talked about it with Root. It was hard to find. If you didn't have Comcast, you could not watch. Or you had to get an app and you had to jump through a bunch of different hoops, and people didn't want to do that. Guess what we all have? Every TV here in Portland has Portland CW.
Yep.
If you don't have a TV, every bar has one. It's right there. It's a brilliant move on their part because Oregon State baseball people care about it. Get on a TV station that it's easy to find, and it's a local station. So now you're building up two brands at the same time. It's just a great move all around.
Good partnership for Oregon State and the CW, and they're going to broadcast 18 of their home games this upcoming year, so you'll be able to watch them on the CW and stream live on coin.com, so you got a streaming option in there as well. To Will's point, everybody gets the CW. We can make our jokes about the CW. Everybody gets that channel. Everybody gets that channel. And so whatever your provider is, you will be able to watch Oregon State baseball games this year. Really cool for Oregon State fans. Let's get to some football stuff, shall we? I saw this idea floated out. I think it's brilliant. Do you agree? And would it help reshape kind of the postseason in college football? We'll start diving into some football notes. We got some preseason stuff to react to from last night. A starting quarterback has been named in the world of college football, so a lot of football notes to get to starting next on 1080 The Fan. Morning. Your day's off to a good start. We will go to Oklahoma State coming up in about an hour from now, a little less than an hour. We'll get a preview on the Cowboys. They're up next in the Dirty Poll. And then in the final hour of the show, we'll get a preview of Arizona as the Wildcats are up as well. We're double dipping on the Dirty Poll, so that's coming up at 7:40 and 8:30. This morning, if you're interested in the previews of those two schools. We will Sprague the line. We'll see what Big Will Betts has in store for us this weekend.
Oh, yeah, I should look at this.
See what kind of parlays we got cooked up. You got some time. We'll get to that at 8:50. We're going to move it a little bit earlier because the guest could only go from Arizona at 8:30. So we're moving the Sprague in the line up to 8:15. So a little bit of a shuffle on a Friday. We will make it work. I saw this yesterday, and I actually really genuinely loved the idea. And I'm curious where fans are at on this. So I think one of the biggest things that college football has struggled with over the last however many years, and this will hopefully change this year, but time will tell. There are unintended consequences of any new change or structural change that you make with a sport. I think the biggest issue that college football has suffered from is the idea that their postseason lacks excitement and entertainment. And bowl games have largely become, for the majority of fans, irrelevant. They're on TV. People still watch. The numbers aren't terrible. But it's mainly because there's not a lot going on that time of year. People are around the house. It's holiday time, right? You just got a random bowl game on in the background. We've all been there that week after Christmas when you're on vacation. And you're like, why am I glued to Miami versus this random school playing in a pinstripe bowl? But you're watching it because that's what we do. But that doesn't mean that the product and the intensity of their postseason lives up to the hype or gives you the excitement that you want as a sports fan. I think that a 12-team playoff, eventually turning into a 16-team playoff, will change that. But I think this is a brilliant idea coming as an offshoot of that. And so it was announced, I think Ross Dellinger was the one that originally had this report a day or two ago, where the group of 5 commissioners are getting together and they are having a meeting to talk about their future and the direction that they want to go. And one of the things that they're fearful of, which I genuinely hope we do not lose, but you never know how these things are going to play out, they're fighting for keeping their automatic qualifier spot into the college football playoff. Because at any moment, the SEC and Big Ten could just say, you know what, no, we don't want Liberty to be here. See you later. We don't need to give you a seat. You got somebody that goes undefeated that's ranked inside the top 12, we'll consider giving you a spot. We're going to take away your automatic qualifier spot. So they're keenly aware of that being a potential outcome in the next however many years as the sport continues to change. And their solution to it, at least one of the ideas that they're kicking around, is to have their own offshoot postseason tournament. And so instead of sending their teams to random bowl games where they're largely playing Power 5 programs who are probably not playing their guys or don't want to be there or are pissed that they didn't make it into the college football playoff, they would have their own postseason tournament. Now, I am a huge fan. I don't know about you, Will, but I imagine that you are as well. When the D3 playoffs go on and you get some of those awesome games that happen in late December on home field soil in crazy weather, I love watching that stuff. And I remember doing an interview with Bill Connolly back in January, and it feels like when you watch it, it's almost back to you're watching college football in its purest sense, where it's not money, it's not transfer portal, it's not all of these things that many fans kind of, it turns them off from the game. Mm-hmm. It's the purest sense of college football of guys who are playing for fun. Most of them will never go on to play professional careers, but they're passionate. The fans are passionate, and I love watching it. I think the group of 5 finding a way to piggyback off of that, turning this into a marketing opportunity where you sell it to a television network where it essentially, you would boil it down to an NIT type tournament,
right?
But you get a single elimination, have some home field advantages there. You give those teams and those fan bases something to play for and something to look forward to outside of a random bowl game. I think this is a win-win solution for both, and I hope that they don't lose their automatic qualifier status. If they do, then this is even more needed, where they can almost crown their own champion every year with teams that they can legitimately compete against week in and week out, unlike some of the powerful teams in Power 5 conferences.
Right. Well, if you think about it, they've already kind of done that, because in every other sport, there's just Division I.
Yep.
But in football, there's FBS and there's FCS. And so, you know, a lot of those smaller D1 schools have already branched off, broken away, done their own thing. And I do love watching those games and that tournament, and they truly do care, as someone who has played a couple times in the D2 version of it as well. The problem that I think you fall into is if they have the automatic qualifier, then you're kind of just playing for second place.
Your best team would not be a part of the playoff.
Right. And so that's where I
wonder. Or at least this playoff, the NIT playoff.
Yeah. Right. And so that's where I wonder if, you're one of these other teams, does it really mean that much to you? Like, is this going to stop if you have a Khalil Mack type player? At Fresno State, they had Devontae Adams and they had Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Would those players still look at it like you look at a bowl game and go, I'm going to be in the NFL, I'm going to opt out? Now, I think if the Power Four come in and they say, no more automatic qualifier, you guys are out of this, then yes, I completely agree. Make your own tournament, because then it is who is the best in this subset of college football teams. But when you have the automatic qualifier, it feels a little bit like playing for second place. And especially in a sport like football, you don't want to do that. There's a reason why there's no CBI for football. Football sucks. Football is one of the worst sports of all time until you play the game. It's the best thing ever to play. If you are practicing sucks. I've never wanted to quit football more than when I was a redshirt, because all I got to do was practice and get beat on, and your body's sore all the time, and your head hurts because you're in meetings all day, and people are talking to you in basically a foreign language, and you don't know what's going on. You're getting screamed at all the time. So I think it's a good backup plan, but I don't know that I would make it the main thing.
Yeah, I think to the point of it being a second place award. I don't disagree with that at all. I think the counter argument would be, what would you be more interested in as a fan of that level? Would you be more interested if you were a fan of, let's use, I don't know, Liberty as an example, okay?
Yep.
Would you rather, because in this format, probably a bad example. Let's not choose. Let's choose like Appalachian State.
Okay.
You would not be getting a bid if you have a great year to a New Year's Six bowl game, and you're obviously not in the college football playoff.
Right.
So let's say you're just a good team that would be like a 5 seed in this tournament. Would you rather go play in the Pop-Tart Bowl against Western Kentucky, and that's the end of your season?
Yeah.
Or would you rather have something to play for? Like somebody texted in, why would anybody care about a group of 5 postseason tournament? I mean, sure, you could say that. People watch the FCS every single year.
People watch the D2.
They do.
I do. I watch it every year. I care.
Like, you might not care, and I totally understand that. It's not your cup of tea. I watch a lot of the FCS tournament every year.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember who Montana played, but they had a home game in like the semifinals last year where it was snowing.
North Dakota State.
It was this crazy back and forth game and like 2-point conversions, and I was glued to it. I had a ton of fun watching it. Now, again, you're not going to reach the same level of audience as you will with a Power 4, 12-team playoff that's on ABC and CBS. And, like, of course you're not going to reach that level of number. It's about, I think for the group of 5, it's about finding a way to stay relevant and finding a way to stay on the forefront of people's minds. Because when you read through this Dellinger piece, a lot of them are raising the same concern. Mike Oresco, who's the commissioner of the American Athletic Conference, flat out said, like, they could change the format of the 12-team playoff at any time.
Yeah.
They have left it wide open. I don't know what's going to happen. It's all up in the air after the 2025 playoff. And so I think these schools and conferences are genuinely fearful of, what if we are left out and we don't have a guaranteed spot into the future playoffs? Sprague has been preaching this for a long time. I always push back against it, but we know that money and greed wins out on this. And if the SEC and Big Ten want to push their elbows out in the room, they can find a way to boot the automatic qualifier for the group of 5 and say, hey, if you want to get an at-large bid, you're 12-0, maybe we'll give you a spot, but you're not getting a guaranteed spot in this playoff. And I think that's part of this thought process of, if we lose that especially, we need to have something on our own that's not just going and playing in the LA Bowl against Utah State that's going to be watched by 400,000 people. We need something that's marketable, something that we can sell to television to make ourselves a little bit more money.
It's almost like you need it there as like your break glass in case of emergency. This is what we have.
Right.
I like my personal opinion on it is, like, if they have this here, because you know what's going to happen. The group of 5 team, if they go 0-3 in the first 3 college football playoffs, they lose, one and done. Boom,
which is
out,
likely going to happen.
then Big Ten, SEC, they're going to start stretching their elbows out because someone's going to get left out that shouldn't get left out. A Michigan, an Alabama, an LSU,
Alabama,
right? And they're going to have a bunch of close losses where they barely lose to Georgia, they barely lose to LSU, they barely lose to Tennessee. And everyone says, well, if, one fumble goes this way, one goes that way. It's FSU this year.
Could have easily won, could have easily been in,
FSU, right? And so then you have this plan set in place, and there's a time and place to really jump and take advantage of this, because if you're these group of 5 teams, they don't play the college football playoff until middle of December, end of December?
I think it starts the second week. You start about 2 weeks after conference title game, so like December 10th, I think, is the first round of the playoffs.
So maybe not as much time as I had previously thought, but you do have this avenue in this time frame where you can be the only games on TV.
Right.
Or you're competing with the FCS, the D2s, the D3s. Guess what? You're probably going to beat those teams. There's a reason why the FCS playoffs are when they are. It's because there's no one else playing during that time, and then you start paying attention. It's why I originally fell in love with Montana and Eastern Washington. It was like, yeah, I want to go play for those schools because I knew I wasn't going to be a Pac-12 kid. I wasn't big enough for that, but I could be a Montana kid. I could be a Eastern Washington kid. And so it actually ends up helping out in recruiting as well. If you're a Memphis and you've got cool jerseys and you're always playing and you're the marquee ESPN game, you're always in this championship, there are going to be middle school kids, high school kids that care about it, right? Or at least go, hey, that's a cool place. If I can't go to my dream school,
that's a good
backup plan. Yeah. So I love the idea, but I think it's too early to implement it. Because again, like I said, you're playing for second place, and then it doesn't really mean anything.
That's totally fair, and we'll see how this all shakes out. I think they're fearful of the direction of the playoff and maybe not having a seat at that table and trying to come up with something on their own. And I totally grant you that this isn't going to be for everybody, and the ratings will not compare to Michigan versus Georgia. It's not going to come anywhere close. We all acknowledge that. It's just about they're desperately trying to find their footing in a landscape where they're appearingly being left behind. And so I'm always for people who are trying to think ahead of the curve and how do we stay ahead of this and what's it going to look like and all of that. And that's what the group of 5 commissioners are doing right now. Would you be interested in watching a play? If they had a simultaneous playoff, or maybe it's, different days of the week where they're playing on like Tuesdays and Wednesdays, would you be interested? Would you want to watch?
Action.
Exactly. The Vancouver Ford text line, 503-864-6326. I got some other football stuff to kick off the second hour with. We do need to at some point get to Will Orton or Seattle Mariners because things are going well right now in Seattle. We will continue the Dirty Poll coming up at 7:40. Loaded second hour back after this on 1080 The Fan.
Hey, guys.
We're talking college football. Everybody's passionate. We're all eager for football season to be here. We are back. Hour number 2, 7:40. We will get to an Oklahoma State preview. It's going to be kind of a wonky scheduling thing that we do with the clock. We got to navigate and manipulate. We'll see how we can make that work. But Oklahoma State coming up at 7:40, and then Arizona today at 8:30. We'll see how they're feeling in the departure of Jed Fish and a new era of Arizona football where they have big expectations in year one in the Big 12. We were talking about the Group of 5 thinking about adding their own postseason playoff and crowning a Group of 5 champion at the end of the season to kind of run concurrent with the college football playoff. I'm wanted to read a couple of thoughts here. Joel commented on YouTube and said, I think they should do a Tier 2 playoff with teams that rank number 13 through number 24, better than meaningless bowl games. And I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. I actually think, too, one of the biggest things that I would love to get away from in the postseason is these neutral site random place games. Like Oregon State played in the Sun Bowl last year. With what happened at the end of the season, your coach left, your players were leaving. Where was the desire at all to go to El Paso, Texas? And when do they play that game? Early January, I want to say, or late December, whenever that game is.
December 31st.
Yeah, usually New Year's Eve or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, who wants, like, I'm not going to that game if I'm a fan. I know that they had some down there, but I'm not spending my hard-earned money to go watch a shell of a team play Notre Dame in El Paso, Texas. I think if I would be in full support of that, especially if you tied in home field advantages, where you had the chance to say, hey, my team was ranked, 16th in the country this year. We were just on the outside looking in. We get to host the number 22 team in the country. They're coming to our place. Like, all right, we're not in the big playoff. We're not going to go play in the Rose Bowl or the Sugar Bowl, but hey, Auburn's coming to town. We get to watch that. It'll be kind of fun. I'll go down to that game. I don't have to travel. I just have to drive a couple of hours, or if I live in the area, I'm right there to go. I would be all for that, and I think it would spice up the postseason, which has clearly been lacking in years past. One listener said, it won't happen, but the Group of 5, they should only play 8 to 10 games in their regular season and then have a short playoff and send the champion of their playoffs to the college football playoff. And I think that's a brilliant idea.
Love that.
As their representative of, like, here's our champion. Let's go see what you can do. You won the Group of 5 championship. Now you get to go compete against the best teams in the country. Brilliant idea. Will it happen? Probably not, because then you're losing regular season games. I don't know how that works, but I think it's a wonderful idea. And then one other quick text I'll read is said, separating the Group of 5 from the power conferences like that would be dystopian and devastating for the overall allure of college football. People love college football for the parity and the regionality, and that would kill every last bit of it for money. It's a sad world. Understand the feeling. I genuinely do. I don't. It's already happening, first off. And I think the other hard part about this is I wonder how there's a part of me internally that thinks people are underestimating the interest that big-time matchups are going to have in this sport going forward, where you are losing some of the fabric of what we loved about the sport in years past, undoubtedly. But what you are adding is what is arguably the most important thing now in sports, which is how many eyeballs can you get to watch your events?
Right.
And if I am now throwing at you Texas, Alabama, Texas, Georgia, Oklahoma, LSU, USC, Penn State, or like when I throw those matchups at you on CBS or NBC or ABC, how many more eyeballs are tuning in to watch those games that would have Texas, Kansas, or Texas, or Iowa State, or Texas, Kansas State? Go down the list of their Big 12 opponents. You could do the same with the Pac-12 schools that ultimately left. And are you going to be able to get more eyeballs than you would have if you didn't have some of those big-time matchups? Nobody knows how this is going to officially play out, but I tend to think that this year, from a television standpoint, is going to be the biggest in the history of the sport because all of it is new, all of it is exciting, and I think you're going to rope in a lot more people than you have in years past as college football fans.
It's the same conversation that we had with the Blazers. You need to be in a space that's easy to find, and you need to be able to get casual fans in. What's the easiest way for casual fans to get into college football? Oh, hey, on October 12th, I've got Ohio State, Oregon.
Yes.
Oh, immediately after that game, I have USC and Penn State.
And Texas and Oklahoma in the morning.
Exactly. So you have all these different rivalry games or these new games with big-time programs that are going to be forced with the new conference realignment. And now I get it, right? Like, I'm sad about the regionality dying. I'm sad that, it felt like Pac-12 football was different than Big 12 football, which was different than Big 10 football, which was different than SEC football.
Yeah.
But at the same time, college football has always been moving. They've always been realigning. I mean, go and there's this documentary on ESPN called Saturdays in the South, and it basically explains why the SEC has kind of become the SEC, and it started at these humble beginnings into what it is now. There are a lot of football teams that were in the SEC, one, that don't even have football anymore. But if they do, they're like D3 teams or D2 teams. Like they always say the greatest college football team of all time was some team that's now a D3 at the time. They were an SEC team and they won like 7 games in 5 days or something stupid like that, right? And only like 3 people died. So that was like kind of their whole bit. So football is always moving. College football is always moving. And they're going to move to a spot where they can get the most amount of money to their program so that they can say, hey, we are the best conference. We're the conference of champions, or we're the conference of this. We're the conference of that. It just means more. And you're going to get insane matchups that you never got before. Is it going to cost some teams like Oregon State and WSU? Yes, it is. And they won't be the only ones that it's going to cost them, right? The ACC right now, I'll tell you what, there's some schools like Wake Forest over there that are getting real nervous and they're shaking in their boots. But it's also just kind of the evolution of the sport, and it'll evolve again and again and again.
It has always been changing. We have conferences, go the way of the dodo bird for many years now. So it's happened in the past. It will continue to happen, and I'm genuinely curious how this works out, because I think the fear of losing the regionality, while I wholeheartedly understand the complaint, I think it's a uniquely West Coast issue with the sport, where other pockets of the country are not necessarily dealing with this. Big Ten schools are now adding West. If you're a fan of a random Big Ten school, you're adding 4 teams from the West Coast, so your schedules are slightly different, or maybe you now have to make a trip to LA or to Eugene or to Seattle that you wouldn't have in years past, but the rest of your conference is the same. The SEC is still in their footprint. Cal and Stanford being in the ACC is the dumbest thing that's ever happened in the history of college athletics. But for the ACC schools, that's like one trip every however many years you got to do it if we're just looking at football. And so their regionality in their conference, at least as of now, is still intact. The Big 12, yes, it spreads a wider footprint than maybe some of the other conferences do, but a lot of the nucleus of that conference is still left intact, and it's mainly in the middle pockets of the country. And so some of the regionality losses that we've had are primarily just felt by us. Now, maybe that continues to change, and as Will mentioned, the ACC crumbles. You get it over on the East Coast as well. I think we're in this battle right now of what the future of the sport's going to look like. I think we all know where it is ultimately heading. And I am not a doomsday guy. I think ultimately it's going to be from a national television viewer standpoint. Now, we can argue, is it the right move? Is it what we should be doing to schools? Like, that's all fair and valid. But if you're just looking at the overall success of the sport in terms of people watching, people caring, and people being invested, I'm not a doomsday guy with college football. I think this year is going to be an absolute boom. And we'll see how it goes. But the season is almost here. I just wanted to read a couple thoughts on that because we're talking about the group of 5 having their own playoff. And I think it would be a good alternative for them. But I know it makes other people fear the continued loss of the fabric that we love about college football. Let's stick in football. I got a couple of notes from last night, a few preseason notes, including in college football, a starting quarterback has been named. And will this guy be able to get the job done? I think there's an interesting conversation there. We'll get to that coming up next on The Fan. shuffle the clock and how it's going to work. So we're going to just get into a couple of quick odds and ends, including the age of somebody who is playing college football right now that I would like to talk about. I do want to at some point carve out some time for your Seattle Mariners after the week that they just had. Interesting week. I did the show on Monday. I'm here. We're doing our favorite things on the weekend. They were on Sunday Night Baseball. They scored like 20,000 runs on Sunday Night Baseball, and everybody's feeling great. Sky's the limit. Lineup is back. Julio's back. And 5 days later, I mean, what happened? Things are not going well. So we'll talk about them at some point here in the next hour and 40 minutes of the show. Did you watch any Eagles and Pats preseason football last night? Did you see Drake May out there slinging the rock, running in tutties?
I'm convinced superstar.
So he's got to be.
Next Tom Brady. Him or Joe Milton at the same time.
I did chuckle. Joe Milton, by the way, was horrible last night. So I think he's lost a little bit of the steam to be their starting quarterback. They had a chance, the Patriots did, to win the game on a final drive. And I just chuckled at all this hype about Joe Milton, and they didn't put him in for that final drive. It was Bailey Zappi at the end of the game with a chance to win it, which I thought was a little strange. They were continuing to start Jacoby Brissett, who, like, what are we doing, man? Why are we still working on that? Why don't we just move on and acknowledge that Drake May is going to be your starter? May actually had a decent game last night, pushed the ball downfield a couple times. One of them was dropped. He did run in a touchdown. The main stat, though, that I would like to point to you, I had forgotten where this guy went. This is one of those fun games early in the season where you're like, oh, that's right. That's where he's playing now. Kenny Pickett is a Philadelphia Eagle.
Yeah.
Kenny Two Gloves has found his way to Philadelphia. Long trip from Pittsburgh to Philly. His numbers last night, he had 11 first-half completions. Okay, you following this? Kenny Pickett, 11 first-half completions last night.
Okay.
They somehow averaged 0.7 air yards per completion.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes it's about stat padding.
0.7. He averaged 4.8 yards per attempt, like 4.8. Yep. The ball traveled an average of 4.8 yards per attempt. This is coming off his first start in which he only threw the ball further than 10 yards 4 times in his first preseason start. He had 23 pass attempts. Only 4 times did they go over 10 yards, and he was 0 of 4 in those numbers. And so, look, Bo Nix gets a bad rap sometimes as check down Charlie. I think 0.7 air yards per completion officially makes you the check down Charlie. Kenny Pickett, please stand up.
I see what you're doing. You're out here trying to change the narrative. You're trying to protect your own guy. Look, and I'm with you. I don't think Bo Nix is a check down Charlie. I'm a big believer in if the guy is open, just hit him.
Get him the ball. There's a difference between hey, he's only throwing it 6 yards to 0.7 yards per completion.
Correct. And I wonder if some of that is just Kenny Pickett being like, I need to have completions because he didn't do that in Pittsburgh. And he came out and he wasn't known for having a big, strong arm.
Right.
But I want to touch on, you were talking about hey, Drake May is just going to be the starter.
Yeah.
I actually think it's a really smart move by New England to not have him start.
Oh, we're going to hold him back a little bit at the start of the year.
At the start. And the whole reason behind that is the system that he played in North Carolina. You're not asking him to make reads. You're not asking him to make adjustments. A big thing that Merrill Hodge has been harping on a lot with Drake May.
He's not a Drake May guy.
He doesn't understand where the hot route is, and he doesn't see blitzes. Well, the reason he doesn't see blitzes is because he can't identify where the blitz is coming from. And a lot of middle school, high school, and even college football now, it comes out of that air raid offense. And so the beauty of the air raid, when Hal Mummy and Leach created it, was you didn't need to be able to read a defense. You didn't need to be able to identify, oh, it's cover 2, it's cover 3. Hey, they're running man. Hey, the blitz is coming from this side, because the ball's supposed to be out of your hand in 2 seconds anyways, and you're just trying to find the open guy. It's the simplest form of football of all time, because you don't have a blitz beater. You just have an open wide receiver, or you have a one-on-one matchup and you throw a 50-50 ball to your best athlete. And so a lot of quarterbacks don't know how to go through and read that defense. And so I think the smart thing is, in New England, have Brissett start for the first half of the year. He's kind of turning into that new age Fitzpatrick, right? This is what everyone did with Ryan Fitzpatrick. You have him come in, he teaches the rookie, then the rookie comes in and takes over. And for Drake May, if you start him right away, you can't go back to Jacoby Brissett. If he comes in and it's clear he's not ready, you can't go to the veteran and be like, well, we'll bring the rookie back. you'll murder his confidence. So start the veteran, let the rookie learn underneath him. Brissett's a smart guy. He knows that his role in the NFL is going to be to raise up young quarterbacks, help push them forward. And then hopefully by the time you start seeing Drake May, week 9, 10, 11, he's able to kind of have a better understanding of what coverages are coming after him. Hey, where is the mic? Identifying blitzes, moving the O-line to protect himself better, so then he doesn't go into this Sam Darnold, I'm seeing ghosts out there, I'm getting hit all the time, I'm scared, and so I'm just throwing the ball away so that I don't get hit.
Yeah, I see the argument for keeping rookie quarterbacks on the bench, and New England is going to be terrible this year. Their offensive line is atrocious.
Horrific.
I know they have addressed wide receiver in the draft, and they're hopeful that some of those young guys, Polk had some nice highlights, like they're excited about maybe some of those young guys starting to fill in a little bit, but the receiver room, just in terms of proven commodities, is not there. That's one of the reasons they were trying to go after Brandon Ayuk. I'm also just of the opinion that for young athletes, you learn far more experiencing than you do watching.
Fair.
And so that's where, like, if I'm starting Drake May and I'm New England, I am not under any sort of impression that he is going to dominate and look like CJ Stroud. Like, I am fully aware, if I'm their GM, if I'm their head coach, and I'm saying, all right, we're giving this guy the reins, I'm fully aware that he's going to suck, and he's going to have a lot of bad games. He's going to miss a lot of open receivers. He's going to take a lot of bad sacks. Like, he is going to struggle. I just tend to come from the belief of, I would rather learn that way and breaking it down and film that week of, hey, do you see why you didn't see this right here? This is where the guy, see how you didn't notice that? And I think you learn more so than watching that on the sideline and saying, okay, you see what Jacoby Brissett did here? See how he didn't see this? The other tough part with this, because maybe ultimately your strategy ends up being right and it's good to protect his confidence, because I think that's the biggest thing you worry about. The other aspect that we have to acknowledge as a part of this is you are also a business, and you are also trying to attract customers. And if I'm a New England fan, Jacoby Brissett was terrible. He threw a terrible pick in the end zone last night. Like, he's not good, and we know that Jacoby Brissett's not good. He hasn't been relevant. I mean, he had like 12 touchdowns 3 years ago. It's one of the best years of his career. He's not a starting quarterback in the NFL. It's not going to attract a lot of fans and inspiration. Not that Drake May will either, because he's not going to win games, but at least he will sell you a vision for the future of this guy ultimately will turn into X, Y, or Z, and we feel like we can build around him. But I'm curious to see how a handful of teams handle these. Like, Bo Nix is going through this right now in Denver. Jared Stidham was listed as the number 1 guy. Zach Wilson was listed as the number 2 guy. I think Bo's going to start their second preseason game. Brissett likely will be the starter in New England. So some of these teams, obviously McCarthy's out for the year, so it will be Sam Darnold for the entire season. They're trying to figure out, how do we want to handle it? How do we want to bring these guys along? One of the biggest things you got to push back against is that fans are going to want to see their rookie quarterbacks play. Right. And if New England starts 0-4 and Brissett's got like 2 tutties and 7 picks and looks terrible, you're going to get Drake May chance the entire time, and you're going to put him in week 5 because you're going to have to in order to appease the fan base. But there's not a right strategy here. I think everybody comes at it from a different lens, and I'll be curious to see how New England and Denver, for that matter, handle it as they go into a season where the rookie quarterback who may or may not be ready to play in week 1.
You really just kind of have to trust that rookie. And like in Denver, I'd be more likely to trust Bo Nix than I would New England with Drake May. And there's a couple different reasons for that. Obviously, Drake May is younger. Bo Nix is older. Bo Nix has played in a multitude of different systems, so he understands how difficult it can be to go from one OC to the next OC to the next OC. But I think with Bo Nix, and this is really more of like a matchup situation, is I think that Bo's play style matches with Sean Payton's play calling style. Sure. Like, think about what Sean Payton wants to do. We used to call Michael Thomas slant boy. We're like, all you do is run slants. Well, yeah, that's all that was called for him. Sean Payton wants the ball out of his quarterback's hands quick. Yep. He wants a smart quarterback who can identify the coverage, find the open wide receiver, or again, the wide receiver with a 50-50 matchup, and go and target that player. It's what made Drew Brees so great. Drew Brees picked teams apart at short throws and in the middle of the field on medium throws. That's what he was great at. He could obviously throw a deep ball, but how many true deep ball highlights do you remember from Drew Brees? Not very many. And this isn't a knock on Bo Nix, Bo Nix is really good at identifying off the line who's going to be the open wide receiver and just getting the ball into their hands. And he doesn't care if it's a 2-yard little swing pass to Bucky Irving and letting Bucky Irving do work. He doesn't care if it's a slant to Gary Bryant Jr. and letting him figure it out. And even every once in a while, throwing like a deep throw to Tez Johnson. But when you think of Bo Nix's highlights at Oregon, you think of him making the right decision in the right moment and getting the key third down pickup. Or, there were obviously a couple big plays, but also you have much better athletes at Oregon. When you have more of the same athlete, which is what the NFL is, Bo Nix's strength is going to be able to identify this is the coverage, this is where the blitz is coming from, this is my hot route, and I'm just going to get the ball into my playmaker's hands. That's all Sean Payton wants. So it makes sense for him to come in. He's an older guy. He's been through multiple systems. To be able to come in and start right away, and I'm not going to say have success, I'm not going to say flourish, but at least be competent in the position. Where I think it can be negligent is if you're throwing Drake May out there, where Drake May's been, I throw to the open wide receiver, my arm is stronger than everyone else that I've ever come across. I can just launch the ball, worst case scenario, and a guy will catch it. You can't do that in the NFL. You don't have success that way. I think that he needs to sit for longer. I'm not at those practices. I'm not breaking down the all 22 of every Drake May snap. I could be wrong. But I think that you have to go case by case basis with each rookie. If you came in and told me like, hey, we're going to go with Tyson Bagent and Caleb Williams is going to sit, I'd say that you're a moron. He has to start. But people want to have this one size fits all. And it's either they need to play right away. Look at what CJ Stroud did, or they need to sit for a year. Look at Patrick Mahomes. And it really is a case-by-case basis on matchup of play caller, quarterback, and team. And so I think you're going to see a couple different versions of that with this rookie quarterback class. And I think a couple different versions are going to work. A couple are clearly not going to work. And that's just the way that the cookie crumbles. And then you go back in 3 years and you get a new rookie quarterback.
You start the process all over again. Interesting decisions ahead. Drake May looked pretty decent last night in the only preseason game, I believe, that was on in the NFL. We will get to a preview of Oklahoma State coming up here in a bit. I got a college football quarterback note I want to get to that we didn't get to there. We'll talk a little Mariners as well. Sprague and Line coming up at 8:15. We are back after this. First, here's Will with SportsCenter. Arizona preview coming up at 8:30 later on this morning. But I got a quick note here, and then we'll get to our Oklahoma State preview. It's kind of a wonky schedule. He could only go at 7:40. It's right in between two different segments, so we're going to have a kind of quick interview and then a quick wrap-up segment, and then we'll try and get everything back on the rails in the final hour of the show. Before we get to our Oklahoma State preview, I saw this the other day. There is a freshman wide receiver at Arkansas whose name is Monte Harrison. That name might sound familiar because he's been involved in a major sports update or headline in years past. He is turning 29 years old Saturday. That is tomorrow. And you heard that correct. 29 years old. He is turning tomorrow. He played professional baseball for the last 10 years, and he was one of the main pieces in the trade that sent Christian Yelich from Miami to Milwaukee. And so he played minor league ball for 10 years. Now he's trying his hat at college football. He's 29 years old. He's only a freshman, or he's going to turn 29 tomorrow. I saw that there were highlights of him in their fall camp going out yesterday that I chuckled at because that is absolutely wild to be 29 years old and a freshman in college, but a big part of the Christian Yelich trade. Let's talk some Oklahoma State football. They are up next in the preseason dirty poll as we get closer and closer to the start of the season, the number 15 team in our college football preseason poll. Joining us now, good friend of the show. We've had him on before, Robert Allen, at R. Allen Go Pokes on Twitter, sideline reporter for Oklahoma State. Robert, first off, thanks for the time, man, out here in Portland. We appreciate it. I know your time is limited, so let's jump right in. Where are you at with the expectations for this team? It's a group that's bringing back a starting running back, a starting quarterback, 10 starters on defense, a good offensive line. Seems like hopes are high down there going into the year for the Cowboys.
Yeah, hopes are high. I just came from practice, and they're just getting started this morning, and yeah, it's going to be 105 degrees here today and sticky. By the way, just humor me. What's the high going to be up there today?
Oh, okay. Hold on. Let me look up. We had a little cloud cover yesterday, a few sprinkles last night. The high today, it's going to be 79 and sunny.
Yeah, okay.
You want to come do Oregon sidelines, Robert? Come on. You want to come move to Eugene or Corvallis? Let's go.
Well, the cool thing is Oklahoma State goes to Eugene next year. I mean, and this fan base is really looking forward to that. I mean, I don't know how many tickets in the contract Oklahoma State's getting, but they will use them all here because their fans, they're excited. They played Oregon State up in Corvallis a couple of years ago, 5 or 6. I don't know when it was. Mm-hmm. And everybody enjoyed it. So everybody's looking forward to going to Eugene. Yeah, the optimism is good. I mean, yesterday it's day-to-day. Within the team right now, it's day-to-day. The fan base just feels like, yesterday it was announced all 6 home games sold out before the start of the season. That's never happened here before. They've sold out a season, but usually the last couple of games sell out in October. This year, everything is sold out. Every ticket they've got is sold before you even kick off the first game of the season. But like I said, within Mike Gundy and his staff, within this team, it's day-to-day. And if you look at it yesterday, it was a good day for the defense. It was maybe not the best practice, and so today is the day they're going to try and bounce back. Final scrimmage of the preseason comes up on Saturday. Classes start here on Monday. They're going to start working on South Dakota State, which I'm pretty sure that the Jackrabbits don't really give a darn who Oklahoma State is. They've won 2 championships in 29 games in a row. So, it's going to be a great lid lifter here in Stillwater with those guys coming in and as confident as they'll be.
Yeah, it's not an easy game to start with. It looks like one on paper, and then you dive into who they are and what they've accomplished. That's not an easy way to begin your year. I'm curious to ask you, Robert, before we get to kind of the details of the team and what the structure of the roster looks like, I'm curious what you chalk that up as in terms of the excitement of selling all those. I saw that headline. That's a massive story, and it's not like Oklahoma State football has been down. They've been relevant for a long time. They've had some great years competing for playoff spots, Heisman contending quarterbacks. Like, this program's been solid for a long time. What do you think it is about this year or this offseason that made it different to have that push to have all those tickets sold before the year starts?
You bring up a good point because I was covering this team when Barry Sanders won a Heisman. And I remember being out there and seeing, 10, 15,000 empty seats at in the stadium when he was playing. I'm like, I can't believe this. They've sold most of their tickets the last decade and a half. It's just there's always been a couple of hundred, couple of thousand seats empty. just they've played well enough under Mike Gundy now. They've done well enough the last few years. They've given this fan base enough confidence that they've added those last 1,500 to 2,000 fans that have bought the tickets. And now, I mean, I have season tickets, but I don't use them because I'm working, and my wife actually sits up in the coaches' offices. So I'm looking forward to it because, with Utah and some teams, I'm probably going to make a little money on those season tickets.
Hey, now we're talking.
Secondary market is going to be really good in Stillwater this year. But, no, I just think that Mike Gundy has done well enough that there have been enough people get on board the ship that they fill it up now. There's no cabins empty. Everybody's got a bed, got a room. All the meals are prepared, and everybody's ready to go eat.
Yeah, we're talking with Robert Allen, sideline reporter for Oklahoma State, the number 15 in the preseason. Dirty poll as we get closer to the start of the year at @RAllenGoPokes on Twitter. And they're going to be up in Eugene coming up here soon because that's a non-conference game we're all looking forward to. Let's get to just what the roster looks like. I mean, I think when you think Oklahoma State right now, Ollie Gordon, obviously the name that stands out the most, and he was in the news in the offseason for not the right reasons, but a tremendous running back and a guy that other teams around the country came after and tried to poach away from Oklahoma State, but he remained loyal. How dominant is this run game going to be? Because it feels like you got, a couple of super seniors on the offensive line and a group that it's largely back. Is this just going to be a pound the rock offense? Do they feel good about their balance with a returning starting quarterback? What do we expect from the Oklahoma State offense this year?
Mike Gundy explained it pretty good on media day. They expect defenses to crowd the box with Ollie, with that veteran offensive line, and they've got about 8 or 9 offensive linemen they're comfortable with. So there'll be some rotation there, which is usually, it's unusual to do that, but they're going to keep those O linemen, their legs fresh too. You've also added Trent Howland, the running back that led Indiana last year in rushing. Now, Indiana wasn't a great running team, but I've been impressed with Howland. He's kind of an SEC back, 6'3", 240 pounds, and he can move. So then they've had a freshman come in, Rodney Fields, that is he's been sensational. So good that the coaching staff has talked about that he's going to have to play some, and that's unusual with the 2 guys ahead of him. But what Mike Gundy said on media day was, hey, we expect people to crowd the box, but when they do, we're going to throw the football because with Rashad Owens, who was the MVP last year in the bowl game against A&M, Brennan Presley, a slot receiver that's had over 100 catches last year, and then Deshaun Stribling, who got hurt last year, but he's back. He's the former Washington State leading receiver that transferred here, before last season. They feel like you want to cover us man-to-man on the outside while you cram the box, we're going to make you pay for it. So pick your poison, and I think Mike Gundy feels really good about whatever direction his offense has to go based on what the defense gives them.
Interesting. On the other side of the ball, Robert, you had a defense that was, statistically not great last year. I think 86th in scoring defense and not great in pass defense efficiency. And it's one of those, is it good to have everybody back? Because I think they got 10 starters returning. So you're hoping on a little progress and internal development and all that. What are they saying? You mentioned they had a good day in practice the other day. How are they feeling about the defense taking a big step with 10 returning starters?
That's my if to this season. If the defense is better, this team really takes off. If not, it could be a lot like it was last year, which wasn't bad, but It wasn't what you really want with this many older players and a guy like Ollie Gordon returning. I think it's a good thing that those guys are back. They're good players. I think an even bigger key is this is the second year for coordinator Brian Nardo. He's more comfortable with both his team and the teams he has to go play. The one guy I would point out, I know Colin Oliver gets a lot of publicity. Nick Martin at linebacker had 140 tackles last year. He's one of the smartest linebackers I've ever seen here. And I've told fans, if you can get your eyes away from just following the football, and believe me, by watching Nick Martin, you'll get back to the ball. Watch him play because he's a treat. I'm a former linebacker. So when I watch Nick Martin, I'm like, why couldn't I have been like him? I mean, he really is sensational. So if they can get good play on the corners, and those guys are back, Cam Smith and a 6-year senior in Corey Black, if they're good on the corners, because they like to play a lot of man and like to to get adventuresome and crazy in the middle, then this defense will be better than last year. And if this defense is better than last year with that offense, this could be a special season. But that's that big if to me is the defense.
Yeah, we'll see how they turn out on that side of the ball. Wide open Big 12 this year. I'll get you out on this one, Robert, because I know your time is limited today. What's a successful season look like for Oklahoma State? What's a failure of a season? Landscape change. You win the conference. You're in the playoff. What's a successful year? What's a failure of a year?
Successful years get back to the Big 12 championship like they were last year, and this time, win it. Texas won't be waiting for you there. Although if they keep losing running backs, that might not be a bad proposition. But golly, you lose your top two of your running backs in fall camp. I mean, if that were happening here, you'd have people drive. I know we don't have skyscrapers. You'd have people jumping off buildings downtown Stillwater. If Ollie got hurt, and there were rumors about that this week, but they were unfounded. But no, that's a good year. Is get back to the Big 12, give yourself a chance to win it, guys. Circle September 21st. I don't know who else is playing that day. I'm sure there's some damn good games. But when Kyle Whittingham brings his Utah team into Stillwater, Mike Gundy, these are two coaches that they're tough guys. They want to run the football. They want to hit you. I'm thinking we may have one of the creme de la creme of football games in Boone Pickens Stadium on September 21st. I know there's good games. Arkansas is coming in here week 2, and South Dakota State you don't overlook. But I will say this, down the road, I am really looking forward to the first meeting in the Big 12 with Utah and Oklahoma State.
It's a great program. Whittingham is an incredible coach. We got an up-close look at that in the Pac-12 over the last handful of years, and we'll see what he can do. You're one of the Big 12, and we get to see your Cowboys up close and personal next year at Autzen Stadium, early September. We can't wait for that. Robert Allen, at @RAllen, go Pokes on Twitter, pokesreport.com as well. He does the sidelines for Oklahoma State. Thanks so much for the time, man, here in Portland. We appreciate it. Enjoy football season, and hopefully we can catch up again soon.
Same to you guys. Enjoy the season.
Absolutely. Robert Allen of Oklahoma State, sideline reporter. I had, until he mentioned that, I had forgotten that they're coming on to next year. And then Oregon makes a return trip to Stillwater in 2020. I totally forgot that was a non-conference slate. So next 2 years, you got Oklahoma State on the books. September 6th next year at Autzen, and then September 12th at Oak. That's a fun return trip. Like, I heard a lot of people who went down to the Texas Tech game had a good time. It was a crazy atmosphere this last year. Mm-hmm. I'd imagine that Oklahoma State's the same. I also find it fascinating that of all the years that they could sell out their ticket allotment prior to the year starting, this was the year that they did it.
Not the year I would have expected.
No, and I wondered how much – he didn't get to it there, and I didn't want to – we only had like 10 minutes with him, so I didn't want to spend too much time on ticket sales. But I wonder how much of that was getting spurned by Oklahoma and them leaving and them, like, fans being like, you know what? Middle finger to you, like, we're going to show you we love football. Right. We don't need you. And I wonder how much of that was a driving force for that. But Oklahoma State, big expectations for them. They are number 15 in the preseason dirty poll. We will get to Arizona coming up in the final hour. We got a kind of short segment. Did they pick the right guy for this? That's next in Crunch Time on the Fan.
topics you want to hear.
What's the pressure? Don't sit here and act like there's no... We get nervous teeing off in front of a gallery on the 10th hole at Eastmoreland.
Crunch Time, brought to you by Crunch Fitness, with memberships as low as $9.99 per month. Find your Crunch Time in Portland, Vancouver, and online at crunch.com.
Hey, Crunch Time, brought to you by Crunch Fitness. Memberships as low as $9.99 per month. Find your Crunch Time in Portland, Vancouver, online at crunch.com. Bit of interesting news in the melding of entertainment and sports this morning, or maybe this came out last night. I was a little off the radar yesterday and was trying to catch up on everything I missed. Did we see that there is a biopic announced of John Madden and the person they have chosen to play John Madden?
Is it
Did
Kevin
you see this?
James?
No, it is not Kevin James.
I haven't seen it. I
haven't
think
seen this?
It should be Kevin James.
Let me throw this at you then, Will, since you haven't seen this. If you were going to make a movie, you are a powerful Hollywood producer. Look at you, Will. You're going big. You're going big places. You are making a movie about John Madden. Who is the first actor that you call that you think would play a good John Madden?
Well, Chris Farley's dead, so I can't call him.
Chris Farley is dead. You cannot.
Can I revive Chris Farley?
You cannot revive anybody. It has to be an alive actor. Who are you making a phone call to? Is there anybody that stands out that you think looks like John Madden? Kind of big and burly.
Is it offensive to be like John Goodman?
I mean, that's not a bad pick.
I
John
feel like
Goodman's
he
not
could
bad.
figure it out. Like, he'd have to play old John Madden. He couldn't be John Madden through the years.
That's the tough part. You couldn't do young John Madden with John
CGI,
Goodman.
maybe?
You could, yeah. Or maybe you get multiple and he does the older John Madden. Some biopics have done that over the years.
Like he talks back in, and then there's like young John Madden running around. That's where Kevin James comes in.
That's where he's young
John Madden.
He's already Sean Payton, though. He can't be John Madden and Sean Payton. You can't be two coaches.
He is one of the greatest actors of my generation. Why not? He was great in Grown Ups, just as he was average on that stupid King of the Hill show or whatever.
Hey, King of, don't you disrespect King of Queens,
Oh,
Will
I
Ortner.
apologize.
Don't you disrespect the greatness that was King of Queens. No, they chose to be in the biopic to play John Madden. They chose Nicolas Cage.
No, they didn't.
Nicolas Cage is going to
they
star
didn't.
as John Madden in a biopic movie.
That's either going to be the greatest thing of all time or the worst thing of all time. I'm here for it. I'll buy the popcorn. I'll show up.
I'm probably going to watch it. I'm not going to lie. Do you have any memories as a sports fan of John Madden, or was that's too early for you, other than the video game? Like, do you have broadcast memories of John Madden?
Yeah, no. Like, to me, John, it's not Madden and Summerall. It's Madden and Al Michaels.
Ah,
like, Al Michaels
yes.
will always be my GOAT, and I will defend him till I die. Anyone that says he should be off Amazon Prime can catch these hands at any point. But that's what I remember of John. Him being kind of silly and an idiot.
Silly
and then,
old John Madden. I mean, he was always
Turducken.
silly, but Al Michaels, Monday Night Football, John Madden. Yeah, I look, I'm a Nick Cage guy. Nick Cage has had a bit of a resurgence here over the last couple of years.
Oh, yeah, dude. I just watched The National Treasures.
I mean, those are good. I mean, the first one's a
great.
decent movie. The Pig movie that he filmed in Portland was pretty solid and well respected. Yeah, go check that one out. Pig.
It's just called Pig.
It's called Pig, and it was filmed in Portland. I think it was like highly acclaimed. He had the movie where the like stars kidnap Nick Cage. Remember that, like with the guy from Game of Thrones?
Oh,
The
Last
of Us.
of immeasurable talent, or whatever, where Nick Cage plays Nick Cage.
Nick Cage. You had like he's on a bit of a run right now, and now he's adding John Madden, and I'm excited. I for one will watch. Will he work as a John Madden? I don't know, but I can kind of see it. So I've seen like people have done the picture by picture thing. The nose, I can kind of see it. You got to whiten his hair. You got to add a few pounds, and I don't know if Nick Cage is a tall man or not. John Madden was big. But the nose, and I can kind of see it.
Does he have to get fat, or does he wear a fat suit?
I think he's going to go fat suit, but Nick Cage is also a method actor, so maybe he just gains a ton of weight going into this role.
I think, like, as an actor, I would do that all the time. I would take a fat role, and then I'd take a skinny role, and then I'd go fat, skinny, and I know that's bad for your health. I'm going to die early anyways, so I just go back and forth. So then everyone would be like, look at the transformation. Like, here's Will as that guy from 600-Pound Life.
I was the big guy. Now
And
I'm the little guy.
Now here's Will as Batman.
That's right. Somebody said he's in that new horror movie Longlegs. It's the freakiest role you'll ever see him in. Just came out a month or so ago. That is supposed to be a terrifying movie. I've not seen it yet. But
not happening.
It's supposed to be really good. So Nick Cage having a resurgence. He's added John Madden to his Rolodex, and that movie will come out at some point in the years to come. But they're making a biopic on John Madden, and Nick Cage will be your actor. We got a lot to get to in the final hour of the show, which is already here, but we're getting there. more football notes. We will talk about what the hell is going on with Will's Seattle Mariners. His fans are pissed off after the last week. We will spring the line at 8:15. We'll get an Arizona preview at 8:30. Lots to get to. The final hours next on 1080 The Fan.
In business, success
to in the final hour of the show. An Arizona preview coming up at the bottom of the hour. We will move Sprague the line up ever so slightly to accommodate that, and so that's coming up here around the corner. Some quick gambling thoughts from Big Will Betts. We'll see who he likes this weekend, because Lord knows you don't want my gambling advice right now.
Things struggling a little bit.
Things are not going well right now, and so I'm in desperate need of a win. If you got any good bets, go ahead and send them in. I could use them. Get your fake sponsors in as well. I'm going to read you a tweet, and I'm curious if Will Ortner feels the same way. This comes from our good friend John Sakanik, who yesterday tweeted, "One hit. One. They are an ill-advised dive by the Tigers right fielder away from being swept twice. Hideous. This entire organization is stupefying. What an epic failure. What an epic collapse. Screw all." The Mariners yesterday gave up a 2-run home run in the bottom of the 8th inning to Javi Baez, who was hitting $188 on the season. And they lost the game 2-1, in which their starting pitcher went 7 innings, allowed 2 hits, no runs, and struck out 9. And they were swept by the Detroit Tigers. Game 1 was, you had those fluky random blowouts that happened. Everybody has them throughout the year, 15-1. You're like, whatever, it's one game. And then the pitching is dominant, and you lose in 10 innings in Game 2, and the pitching is dominant, and you blow a lead in the 8th inning in Game 3. And this is kind of the beauty and the ugliness of baseball, where you can go in less than a week span feeling great about a sweep, a Sunday night baseball game, the offense waking up on Sunday night, to then going to Detroit and getting swept, and now you go on the road to Pittsburgh, starting a series tonight. But Mariner fan, it seems like not handling this latest bit of news very well, and a team who is continuously losing games the exact way we all knew that they would lose games, with dominant pitching and no offense, and that has not been rectified, and they are now, after getting swept by the Tigers, 3 games back in the division from the Houston Astros, who have won 8 games in a row. How are we feeling, Will Ortner?
Well, it's classic Seattle Mariners baseball. It is, let's find a way to have a team that's supposed to be really good, and they're going to be horrific hitting. You are just almost at the point where you've given up. You're done. It's over. And then they trade for one of the most exciting, fun to watch outfielders in the game, Randy Arozarena.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you have Justin Turner, a professional hitter, a guy who instantly adding him, even though he's 39, boost your lineup because he's your second or third highest average guy.
I mean, the rest of your lineup was so bad that anything would have boosted it, and those guys definitely should have.
You start winning games. You take on, the Mets. You get Sunday Night Baseball. You sweep them. Everyone's starting to hit home runs again. Cal Raleigh
Julio's
is
back.
Explaining everyone how big his butt is and why they call it a dumper. And then you just blow it to Detroit.
Yeah.
You just blow it. It's so frustrating. And growing up for me, one of my favorite Mariners of all time was Felix Hernandez. And to this day, I will fight with people. He had, 1 Cy Young?
Yep.
The guy should have had 4. He was the best pitcher in baseball, but he was stuck on some of the worst Mariner teams. And because baseball writers are stupid, they're like, well, his wins aren't good enough to qualify as a Cy Young. Even though everyone in the AL lost to him in every other category that was a legit pitcher stat, the wins and losses that didn't matter to him and he really didn't have that much control over, wasn't as good as they felt it should be. Now I get to times that by 4. We were laughing about it before the show started. Logan Gilbert's ERA is under 3.
He's having a great year.
He's under 500 in the win column.
Yes.
I believe the stat is of the Mariners have 28 quality starts from pitchers where the starting pitcher didn't win the game. Now, quality start is you went 7 innings, and I think you only give up 2 runs. 28. In those games, they're 5-22. 5-23, excuse me. Math is hard.
That is so bad.
It's so laughable. You scored a run because you walked a guy in.
Yes, in the first inning, and that was all you had.
You had 1 hit. It's laughable. And then you have your best pitcher out of the bullpen, your closer, a guy who was an all-star, and he gives up a home run to Javi Baez.
Sitting $188.
A guy that I could go out there and throw 3 balls in the dirt, literally bowling ball, roll them out, and he'll swing at. It just doesn't get worse.
That was tough. That was a tough series. The beauty of baseball, at least, is that there are ebbs and flows. And as low as you are feeling now, a good series in Pittsburgh, and maybe you're feeling better. Their playoff percentages, though.
Don't do that.
Their percentage chance to make the playoffs is down to 33%, according to ESPN. The tough part that they have going for them is that the AL wildcard race is not an easy one to navigate. And I think they're 3.5 back right now in the wildcard race. And so you're looking at likely having to win the division if you want to win, if you want to make it to the postseason. And the Astros have been on a bit of a tear here. As I mentioned, they've won 8 in a row. And so they don't seem to be going anywhere. I think at some point there needs to be a serious conversation. And now is not the time because you still have a lot of year left and you might end up making the playoffs. This team could figure it out, score 4 runs a game. That's all you need to do usually with this pitching staff. And you find your way in and maybe you go on a run because your pitching staff is dominant. At some point, though, if they miss the playoffs, especially this year, there needs to be a serious question of, like, why are you continuing to support this? Because you have an owner who does not care about you and does not want to win. He does not want to invest. And this is one of the larger issues that I've had here locally with the Blazers over the last couple of years. It's just that I don't think the owner cares. I don't think she's invested. I don't think she wants to win. And I know there's a lot of people that would try and push against that. But I'm not backing down from the stand. She's eventually going to sell the team, and we're going to get somebody who's going to have to spend billions of dollars to buy it that doesn't inherit it. And they're going to want to do everything that they can to win. It doesn't mean you're guaranteed to have success as a franchise, but at least you're going to have an owner that is totally committed because they're going to have to spend $4 billion or whatever it's going to be to buy the franchise. And so they're going to turn over every stone to try and win. I've seen a lot of that starting to boil over in Seattle, of pointing at the ownership group and not spending money and not going after free agents. We all knew what they were going into the year. We all knew what they needed to do in the offseason, and they didn't do it. And here you are. It's like, I'm shocked. They didn't spend any money on their offense. Their pitching staff is dominant, and they're losing games 3-2, 2-1 late in the season, when if you just had a competent offense, you would be 15 to 20 games above 500 right now. If you just had a middle-of-the-road off, you didn't even need to go sign Shohei. That would have been awesome, but you didn't even need to go get him. Just give me a middle-of-the-road offense, and you're 15 games over 500 right now, blowing out one of the worst divisions in baseball because the AL West is horrible.
Right.
So you would have had that built in, but instead you went on the cheap. We all knew how this was going to turn out. And again, maybe this ends up being a Cinderella story, and you make it, and the pitching staff carries you, and we live happily ever after. But I've seen enough of these movies to know that this offense is likely going to doom you, and it's dooming you right now. And it's a bummer because the quality start stat that you gave is insane. The quality start 6 innings and 3 runs or fewer. Like, to have that record when you have a pitcher go 6 innings and give up 3 runs or fewer, it's insanity, man. And you went through it the last 2 days with a dominant starting pitching performance. 7 innings, 9 Ks, 2 hits. Like, that should be good enough for a win, but it's not because you can't score runs. And it would be incredibly maddening. And as long as you continue to spend money and go buy $100 tickets and $40 beers and $30 hot dogs and funnel money into the pocket of an owner who doesn't care and is just in it for generating revenue for his own money or his own pocket, nothing is going to incentivize him to try and go all in win because he ultimately doesn't care. They told you last offseason 54% is all that matters to them.
Right.
And until you speak with your wallet, 54% is all that will matter to them. It's a really hard ask of fans, but we'll see how the next couple of weeks play out. I think, though, if they miss the playoffs this year, after a year again of not trying to sign bats in the offseason, like you got to start looking in the mirror and asking yourself some hard questions of why am I spending my money on this at that point?
Right. Well, and I think the biggest thing that I noticed is I got to go up right after the All-Star break when they played Houston.
Yeah.
They were still in first place. And this is when the Teoscar Hernandez thing comes out where he's like, well, I had a really hard time picking up the ball in Seattle. And I think this is indicative of the larger issue in Seattle. You go and stand behind home plate. The batter's eye is crooked. We can get a straight batter's eye at Hawkinson High School. We can get a straight batter's eye at Cleveland High School.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if Powell Park has one, but I see your point.
It's not that hard. But we have to have a crooked batter's eye because there has to be a roof that we open and close and open and close and open and close. When you don't have the detail to get a straight batter's eye, or you just go, whatever, it's cheaper if we do it this way, the batter's eye will be crooked, it's not going to be that big of a deal. It's going to be indicative of the entire thing. It's going to be indicative of how you go out and sign players. Well, we don't need to go and sign professional hitters because they're expensive. We can sign this guy and try and moneyball it. Or we can we'll have a dominant pitching staff. Pitching is hard to find. Batters, we'll figure it out. We'll find a way to win in chaos ball in the last couple innings.
Right.
Well, eventually that catches back up to you. And it feels like this season especially, the chaos ball has caught back up to you.
Yeah.
And you just don't care. You don't care. It sucks.
That is when you have an ownership group and an owner that you question the level of investment that they're making. That's the most frustrating part to be in as a fan. And the Mariners are not alone in that category. Don't get me wrong. Like, they're not the only ones that are dealing with this. It's frustrating because it feels like everything else is lined up to where you need it. When you get a pitching staff like Seattle has, not easy to put together, not easy to develop, and you're right there on the cusp of being able to do something special. You just are being held back by the same thing that has always held you back, which is a lack of investment and a crooked batter's eye, evidently. So the Mariners,
it's so
it definitely is.
jacked up.
It definitely is crooked. I remember hearing those talking points. They fired their offensive coordinator. That has not helped out. The Mariners' offense is still lacking.
Did they hire Lincoln Riley?
Yeah, maybe Lincoln Riley's available. He could be if USC disappoints this year. And they go to Pittsburgh, so we'll see what they do this weekend. Again, you go up, you go down, you go up, and you go down. That's the beauty and the ugly side of baseball, where you're high one day, low the next day, and maybe Monday will be a different tune, and the Mariners sweep the Pirates. But an uphill battle. ESPN now gives them only a 33% chance to make the playoffs in a rough week in Detroit. Let's get to Sprague in the Line. We'll get an Arizona preview coming up at the bottom of the hour. An early edition of Sprague in the Line is next on the Fan.
This is Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
Should we wait for it to come around? Hold it. Hold it. Hold it. Almost
Don't
time.
sell.
Almost time.
Diamond hands.
Sprague in the line. Sprague in the line. People are fired up. Mariners get people fired up. We will do an Arizona preview coming up at the bottom of the hour here in about 7 minutes as they are up next in the Dirty Poll. I love how we get texts and YouTube comments that come in from the start of the show like 2.5 hours late. Yes. I always enjoy those when they pop up. I did a take in the opening segment that I think you should play more scrambles in golf. Like with your buddies, you get together. Most people, like somebody texted in earlier today and said, Dirt, I'm playing golf for the first time in 20 years. I got roped into a round of golf this afternoon. Can you give me any advice? And I told him go in knowing like you're gonna suck. You will be horrible at this sport. And that's okay. I do this with my wife all the time whenever she goes and plays. She gets very frustrated after bad shots, and I just laugh at her. I'm like, honey, you play golf 3 times a year, and you think you're going to come out here and stripe it down the fairway every time? Like, that one's only 10 yards off. That's not a bad shot. That's a pretty good,
true.
Right? It's a pretty good shot for you. You suck. We all suck at golf. We're all just different levels of suck. And I gave the take of that scrambles I think would be a lot of fun for people. If you're, instead of pouring in a 7 or 8, like you play with that guy who's taking their score too seriously, and you chunk one off the tee, and then you hit one behind the ladies' tees, and then you're lying like 5 and you're still 175 yards out. Like, that's not enjoyable. Nobody wants to do that. Scrambles would give you the opportunity to be like, hey, I chunked that tee shot. Guess what? Somebody in my group hit one 237 yards down the middle of the fairway. I'm going to go play from there. That sounds like a more enjoyable shot. This guy said that we don't need more 5-hour rounds of golf. Scrambles would unequivocally speed up the pace of play. You're thinking of the charity scramble that we're double stacking every tee box, and they take a long time. Like the Fan Golf Classic's a great time. It's a shamble, but it's it's going to be a long round because you're double, booking every tee box. You got 2 groups, and it's just, if you just had a random like 8:15 tee time on a Saturday and you played with a scramble with your buddies, you were unquestionably playing faster than you would have. So as I revisit a topic from 6 o'clock in the morning, that text came in and I wanted to respond to it. Let me get one quick sponsor in here. Where did this go? I thought this was good. Spring Line brought to you by the Real Check Down Charlie. Please stand up. Kenny Pickett, that is you. We were already against it. We got to get to Arizona coming up here in a matter of moments. You are a BetQL star, Will Ortner.
In my head only.
You are a BetQL star, man. You're going big places. Does Big Will Bets have any locks of the weekend? You got any picks that you like?
I think the easy one is just take. It's Ravens. They're taking on.
Dude, the Ravens lost last week, man. I gambled on the Ravens and their long winning streak, and it doomed me in my parlay of the day last Friday.
Their winning streak has been over for a while. But right now, you can get a -1 at -108 against the Falcons. That's going to be a 9 a.m. game on Saturday.
Early morning game tomorrow.
Like, you might as well just take it. Harbaugh's going to want to win. You could bet him on the money line, but you only get him at -120. That's where I would go. I've been looking a lot at college football futures.
Okay.
Specifically like conference champions.
Okay.
There's a couple that I like over there. I really like, I'm biased. We're the home of the Ducks, whatever. I like the Ducks at +200 to win the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's a little bit long to leave my money in, because you're not going to get a payback on that until beginning of December.
Yes.
For those small of odds. But I do like all Oregon has to do really in my mind is beat Ohio State. I'm not really that high on Michigan. We went through the schedule yesterday, Schultze and I, and it's like, if Alex Orji turns in to be Jalen Milroe 2.0, then maybe that Michigan team gets a little bit scary at the end of November. But if he turns into Denard Robinson, are you really afraid of him at Oregon? No, not at all. So the biggest game that you have, Ohio State, you get them at home. Don't hate that. The odds aren't awesome, but it could be worse. Another team that I like looking at is Ole Miss. Ole Miss has a very favorable schedule.
They do.
Right now, to win the SEC, you get them at +800. So the odds there are really good. I still think Georgia wins the conference, but you're telling me that Lane Kiffin can finally get over the hump. He's had Jackson Dart there for a couple of years. They know the system well, and I'm getting really good odds. That's a possibility. And then in the Big 12, I've got 2. I'm probably going to take Utah +300. Again, I would prefer to have a little bit better odds, but I think Utah comes in there and just beats the you-know-what out of everybody in that conference. And then my flyer team out in that conference, you can get Arizona at plus 1,600. And I know that they lose Jed Fish.
We'll do an Arizona preview in a moment. We'll see how they're feeling.
And they return everybody, specifically Fafita and McMillan. When you have a quarterback in Fafita who I think is only going to improve, he's the reason that they had their late season turnaround last year. You get to have him a full year as a starting quarterback, and you're getting what? Probably the first, second, or third best wide receiver in the entire country.
In the conversation.
That's his number one target, a guy who's, top 5 in odds for the Biletnikoff. Yeah, I'm going to take a flyer on that team at plus 1,600. It's the Big 12. They're not known for having great defenses, and you're going to have one of the better offenses. You just got to find a way to beat Utah.
Yeah, that is very true. I'm going to go with the baseball parlay today. Look, don't take this bet, okay? I'm terrible. It's been a long summer. It's been rough. Football season needs to get here. Not that will be any better. Your parlay of the day today will be the Phillies at home against the Nationals, minus 278. I'm taking the Pirates at home with Paul Skeens on the mound. Sorry, Mariner fans. You cannot hit Paul Skeens.
Don't blame you.
That's a minus 130. I am taking the Yankees on the road with Garrett Cole on the mound. It's a minus 192. And, of course, we are gambling against the Chicago White Sox in any chance we get. They are in Houston. The Astros have won 8 in a row. So a Phillies, Pirates, Yankees, Astros moneyline parlay breaks down to a plus 397 14 parlay. $10 pays out about $40, and that is my Friday parlay of the day. That's what we're doing today. So there you go. Good luck. Don't take that bet. It will lose. I'm having a bad summer, but if you want to gamble, there are our picks. Big Will Bets with some college football thoughts in mind in baseball today. Let's get to, sorry for the early Sprague in the line, but we had to get Arizona guy Jason Shear. Could only go at 8:30 today. It is now 8:30. We got to get to Jason Shear. A preview of Arizona football is where we go next, but first, here's Will with Sports Center.
through the cracks.
Now, before we do this, let's go over the ground rules.
Pelican Brewing presents The Daily Ticker, where Dirt and Sprague visit with the insiders that are covering the stories you've heard about, and some you haven't.
How'd you do that? Actually, I'm not even mad. It's amazing.
The Daily Ticker with Dirt and Sprague is poured by Pelican Brewing. Be ready for your next afternoon vacation with Beak Breaker Tropical. Pelican Brewing, born at the beach.
All right, a slightly later Daily Ticker today as we do a preview of Arizona football, brought to you as always by Pelican Brewing. Visit pelicanbrewing.com for more details on locations, events, award-winning beers. Independently brewed since 1996, Pelican Brewing, born at the beach. Number 15 in the preseason Dirty Poll is the Arizona Wildcats, who are starting with a new coach, but a lot of talent returning in the Big 12 for the first time this year. Joining us now, Jason Scheer, friend of the program, senior editor, publisher, wildcatauthority.com, at Jason Scheer on Twitter. Jason, thanks for the time this morning, man. I'll just start kind of where I start with a lot of these of where they're ranked. 15 for Arizona. Too high? Too low? Fair? How you feeling about the Wildcats going into the year?
I think it's fair. I mean, based on the success from last season, they should be ranked. But at the same time, there's some questions with the new head coach and some new players as well, but still enough talent to finish, in that top 15. So I actually think that's a pretty fair ranking for them.
I mean, we've gone through this, and I'm sure you're tired of answering questions about it or doing interviews about it. Oregon fan, Lord knows we've been through it. Oregon State fan went through it this offseason. Washington fan went through this. How is the whole Jedd Fisch thing unraveled? Are people is he public enemy number one still? Do they appreciate what he did and kind of rebuilding the program? What's that relationship like, and what's it been like moving on and covering now a new head coach?
It's not great, I think, down the road, people will realize that, while how he left was not great, he still was very successful as Arizona's coach and brought in a lot of good players and put the program back in a positive direction. And I think people will eventually reflect on that. And, Brent Brennan's done a nice job getting in the community and saying, look, I know that, Jedd Fisch created expectations because of that success, and he's been vocal about wanting to continue it. But at the same time, he reminds people that, he wasn't the coach last year. And so while there is expectations, it doesn't mean a ton to him because he wasn't the one that helped set him. And he realizes that, I don't want to say there's pressure, but, there's expectations for him to do well. And I think he accepts that. And people are kind of more positive for Brennan than they are negative for Fisch right now.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's every fan base reacts a very similar way. And Lord knows we just did an interview on Miami the other day, and I made my thoughts known on Mario. Sometimes time doesn't heal the wounds, and maybe it won't in Arizona either. I'm curious to look at your quarterback situation. Noah Fafita comes out of nowhere. At least for us, he did, and has such a great rookie season. I think he set the program record for completion percentage and 25 touchdowns, 6 picks, something like that. Like, such an incredible year. Did it come out of nowhere for Arizona fans? Was that something that was rumored last year in fall camp? And how big of a jump maybe are we expecting from him in going from year one to year two?
I'm not sure it came out of nowhere because he performed well in camp and Jedd Fisch had spoken highly, but I don't think people expected him to be that good right away. He wasn't experienced. He goes and he plays of the game against Stanford where Jaden DeLora gets hurt and Arizona's playing awful and losing, and then he guides Arizona to a win. And even in the losses, like the game at USC, he was fantastic. And so I think people knew that he would be a pretty good quarterback, but he really hit the ground running and became quickly one of the better quarterbacks in the country. And this season, the expectations are even higher. I mean, he's got a year under his belt, and while it's a new offense, watching him in camp and all that, he's his arm strength looks better. He looks every bit of the quarterback as he did last season, and it's a thing where there's high expectations, and there haven't been a ton of good quarterbacks to come through the Arizona program. And when it's all said and done, the expectation is that he's going to be one of the better ones, if not the best college quarterback that Arizona's seen.
And it helps to have maybe the best wide receiver in all of college football as well, at least a guy that's in the mix. It makes his life a little bit easier. What are your thoughts on the Big 12 this year? I mean, it's a new conference. We're all kind of going through these new uncharted waters and some new opponents and new structure and all that. It seems like it's going to be a conference that is full of absolute chaos with maybe like 8 different teams that have the potential to win. What are the thoughts going into the conference, and then just how do you think Arizona kind of fits into that picture in year one?
Yeah, I think it's going to be wild because, like you mentioned, there's, when I was doing the preseason rankings and all that, I went through teams. It's like, well, this team could win. And if this goes right, this team could win. And before you know it, like you have 6-7 teams where they could absolutely, with a few breaks, win the conference. And there's not that one clear favorite. I think, even if Utah was predicted to win the conference, there's things that could happen where, another team could win or Utah could stumble. And I think Arizona's right there in the thick of things. I think they're going to be right there to win the conference. Their schedule is nice where they miss Oklahoma State, Iowa State, and Kansas. So, the schedule is advantageous to them. And so, when you look at it and you look at the teams in the conference, I think you're going to see some pretty interesting results throughout the season.
Well, one random non-football question to throw at you. I feel like I've seen a lot of the news lately of presidents coming and going, and I don't follow that stuff very closely, but I know there's been a lot of headlines about the revenue in the athletic department and budgets and all that. What's been going on down there? Did the president leave? Is there more to that story? I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, the president left. Well, he's still technically the president, but they just hired a new one like the other day. They hired the president of Vermont's going to come down, and he supposedly knocked the interview out of the park, and he was the obvious hire to the committee. And so, there's a lot of change. Arizona has a new president. They have a new athletic director. The provost just retired, so they have a new provost that they have to hire. There's a lot of change at the University of Arizona, and we'll see if it's for the better, but it's definitely a unique time for the school as a whole.
Yeah, they're going into a new conference as well. I kind of wrap all these up. I'm just curious what you feel like if I were to say this is a successful year for Arizona. What does that look like for you? The expanded playoff, a chance to get a guaranteed bid in if you win the Big 12, and Arizona's got a great chance to do it. And what is you look back, that was a disappointing year. What do those two different things look like in your head for Arizona this season?
I think in terms of success, Arizona has to be right there to win the conference. I think anything else would be disappointing, and to me, that's probably the number I've been throwing around is a 9-win season. 9-3. There's some hard games on the schedule, but 9-3 should be good enough to be right there to win the conference, and I think that's where expectations are based on who they returned. And a disappointing season would be barely making a bowl. And I think that it's a weird situation because Arizona in the past hasn't really had expectations. It was a great season when Arizona made a bowl game. Jed Fish, credit to him, was able to change that. And then Brent Brennan had players returning. So I think that most people want to see Arizona compete for a conference title. And if they're able to do that, it'll be recognized as a successful season.
Yeah, it is funny. It's a new world. When you have expectations, it's good. It's a good feeling going into the year, but it's also dangerous of knowing like, hey, if you go 6-6, people are going to be pissed. Whereas in the past with no expectations, kind of like, whatever, 6-6. Expectations could be dangerous, but it also means you're doing something right as a program. Jason Scheer, editor publisher, WildcatAuthority.com, at Jason Scheer on Twitter, friend of the program. Thanks thanks so much for the time in Portland, man. We always appreciate it and enjoy football season. Hopefully we can catch up again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
There you go. Jason Scheer of 24/7 Sports down there covering Arizona, a team that's unique this season with a new head coach, but Noah Fafita is one of the best returning quarterbacks in the country. I would argue. I think he deserves that with the way he played last year. McMillan is still one of my bigger what-ifs of Oregon recruiting over the last 5 seasons, man. That guy, when Oregon had a chance at getting him, was one of the, please land him. He ends up flipping to Arizona at the last second. When Cristobal leaves, he has been unbelievable early in his career at Arizona, and you can make a strong argument he is the best wide receiver in the country. And Brent Brennan did a really good job at San Jose State. That's not an easy place to win, and he was doing a hell of a job down there running that program, and so he steps up now into the Power 4, and we'll see what he can do at Arizona. But the chaos of the Big 12 is going to be awesome to watch. Arizona fits into that picture, and I got him number 15 in my preseason Dirty Poll. So there you go, a double dip on the preseason Dirty Poll. I will let you know which teams we'll be previewing next week as we get closer to the top 10 and the closer to the start of college football season, and we'll wrap up with some other thoughts going into the weekend of sports. Get you all set. The Daily Ticker brought to you by Pelican Brewing. Visit pelicanbrewing.com for more details on locations, events, award-winning beers, independently brewed since 1996. Pelican Brewing, born at the beach. Back after this, we'll close it up next on The Fan. Fist pumping your way into the weekend every single Friday. Next week, the Dirty Poll will reach the top 10, at least number 10, definitely. We'll see if we would need to double dip. We're still a little bit behind schedule on getting ready for week 1. We're going to let this carry through week 1 because next week we have actual football. Next week's week 0, man. A week from tomorrow, college football is back with my Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets in Ireland taking on the Florida State Seminoles. So that's a week from tomorrow.
How many people are actually going to be at that game?
That's a good question. I don't know. Last year, it was who played in that game last? I remember
Notre Dame and Navy.
Notre Dame Navy. That's right. Thank you.
That makes sense.
Notre Dame and Ireland makes sense.
Right.
Yes.
You would think Notre Dame would be in Ireland a lot.
Georgia Tech and I never connect Georgia Tech and Florida State with Ireland.
No, like
Don't
if
quite
you
draw those dots.
had a game in like Latin America, maybe.
Sure,
like
maybe
a game in Mexico.
Yeah.
Game in Cuba.
A little bit closer, you know.
I don't know that Cuba would allow that, but
I don't
maybe
think they would. I don't think you could pull that one off. Probably not. So we have football back next week from tomorrow. Your Dirty Pool teams that will get previewed next week. Number 14, Florida State. DJ Uiagalelei is their quarterback now. I'm not very high on the Seminoles this year. They're replacing a lot, and I'm not a big DJ guy at quarterback. So they're number 14.
Guy.
NC State at number 13, high on the Wolfpack this year. Missouri, number 12, another team who could maybe claim best wide receiver in the country. Utah, number 11, Kyle Whittingham, likely going to compete in the Big 12 this year. And then Oklahoma, number 10. So those will be your teams that definitely get previewed on the Dirty Poll next week. And again, we might double dip if we do Penn State, Michigan, Alabama are next at 9, 8, and 7. So we'll see how many we got to do to fit it all in before the college football season officially begins. A quick weekend primer for you. If you are a fan of preseason football, there are things to watch this weekend.
Ooh.
You get the Chiefs starters playing a good chunk of their game tomorrow at 1 o'clock on the NFL Network. Not good chunk. I mean, good chunk for a preseason game. I think they're going to play like a quarter. Bo Nix is going to make his first preseason start for the Denver Broncos.
Catch the fever.
That game is on the NFL Network Sunday evening at 5 o'clock. Waiting all day for Sunday night. And then, what's the other one I wanted to throw at you? Oh, Russell Wilson is going to make his first start for the Steelers, if you care on that. That
Dangerous.
will be on the NFL Network tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So that's kind of a few tidbits for you around the NFL slate this weekend. I will probably watch way too much football. It might rain tomorrow. Have you seen the forecast?
Is it really?
We might have a rainy Saturday.
Good thing that I'm house sitting for my cousin, and he's got an outdoor TV undercover.
Ooh, outdoor undercover TV is clutch.
It's such a nice. This is also how I'm realizing I'm getting old. It's like in the perfect spot. It's like this could be like my dream house. It's beautiful. Yeah. And then I like pinch myself. I'm like, you're 26.
It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. You work in radio.
You're old.
Yeah, the outdoor TV situation. When you get that, man, if you have the ability to stay undercover, so you're not getting wet, and you can have like a bit of a campfire situation going.
Oh yeah,
you got a grill out there, and it's just
smoker as well, or whatever that green egg thing is. Is that
a
green egg?
Green egg's a smoker. Yeah.
Yeah. So then a smoker. Yeah. No, it's I'm very jealous of my cousin and his lovely family.
I mean, that's a good way to go out. Did you see that RG3 and Sam Ponder got turfed by ESPN?
I did, and I thought like RG3 kind of fit perfectly into what they're doing with like corny bits that go big on Twitter.
It's unique that happened 3 weeks before the start of football season for them, because RG3 was one of their main color guys, I want to say, for college football.
Yes.
And Sam Ponder hosted the Sunday NFL Countdown show.
Right.
She's been a staple on that
really
for a long
late
time.
To do it.
Doesn't it not, right? Like a couple of weeks before the season starts, that's when you're going to fire somebody that's involved in your football coverage? That was a little strange. RG3 had a hilarious tweet. He took the scene from Friday, the original Friday, and it's the dad chastising Ice Cube because he got fired on his day off from work, and he tweeted that. How do you get fired on a day off of work? Like, what? How's that happen?
Right.
So he handled it pretty well. I'm sure both of them will land on their feet, but if you want more Mike Greenberg in your life, it sounds like he might be hosting NFL Sunday Countdown. So
doesn't like? I feel like that's their solution to everything. Like
Mike Greenberg or Stephen A. Smith or Pat McAfee.
No one watches our morning shows anymore. Greeny. Everyone stopped listening to